Okay. Are we good, Marty? Everything okay? You got the what? Oh, no, not at the moment. No, we're not going to be doing that today, actually. Okay. All right, looks like we got almost all the parents in here. Everybody's ready to go. Awesome. You know, we got a lot of children, because when I look out there and see all these empty seats, I know a lot of them are the ones filled by children. So that's just fantastic, you know. And now while the children are playing, we're going to see if we can straighten you guys out. I mean, oh, so did I say that out loud? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud. And some of you are thinking, oh, so this is what he's like when he gets 8 hours of sleep. Okay, so actually, I'm just getting warmed up. You really want to see what I'm like? Get to around me around midnight to 2 in the morning in the parking lot of wherever, after eating for 4 hours, yeah. That's when it really gets out of control. Okay. Up to the challenge is what I call these classes, because really the question is, are you up to the challenge of all the things that Abba has in mind for you? Okay? And so life is a challenge. You know, we talk about, you know, life's hard and apparently I suck at it, right? We know we did the thing with the colored lanyards that had to do with the color code. That's not what we're teaching today. Okay, we have done that teaching 3 feasts in a row. We don't need to be doing that again. You certainly can watch the ones that we already recorded that are just to go on YouTube. Look for the previous teachings, scrolling back to April of this year, then Sukkot of last year, and April. So we did the last couple of feasts. If you look up Dr. Taylor Hartman and Color Code on YouTube, it's his book, it's his color code stuff, and he's got lots of videos on the 4 different colors. So, you know, the reason that we did that, though, the reason we went through this whole process is that I believe that if you understood yourself better, you'd also understand other people better, okay? And so I wanted to use as a fun tool for that, a personality test, okay? That made sense to me, that you could understand kind of why you are the way you are, all right? And you know, the color code one is one of the simplest ones, and I think one of the more accurate ones, so that's why I chose that one. You know, I mean, after all, you can remember colors. I mean, I've taken lots of these things, and I couldn't remember the different names of the different things, you know, especially like the Myers-Briggs, which is like, I'm an ENTP. You're a what? And the letters don't stand for necessarily the first letter of the word either, okay? So you're like, okay, what did N stand for again? And I was like, you know. So, but you can remember if you're white, yellow, red, or blue. It's very easy to kind of get the color thing. And the colors kind of go along with what you would think, right? Yellows are in for fun and sunshine, right? Yellow and whites want peace, right? White flag, peace, and all that stuff. You know, reds, in charge, can get angry, kind of, you know, blues can have the blues. Okay, so I mean, that's not the only thing about the 4 colors, but I mean, it kind of gives you a remember, you know, you can remember what the main things are with them, okay? All right. But today, now, so what we want to do today is, I know you guys are not used to a teaching. Let's start off with, okay, so today, we're going into part whatever or something. Okay. So what I want to do is, we had mentioned that we were starting a men's class and a women's class, you know, in our local congregation. Some people are like, but what about, can you stream it? Can you do this? Can you do that? So I want to talk about some of the things that we talk about in those classes, and then have the ladies and the men together. We kind of tend to do that separately. Well, at least we did at the beginning, then we started doing it a little bit together as we were kind of giving some general concepts. So for this, I actually have bullet point notes. I don't have a lot of verses to go to right now, but I do have a lot of bullet point notes. So I just want to make sure we're covering this. So what we're trying to do, and we're not going to get through this obviously just today, but I want to go with the understanding of, you know, Elohim created mankind. All right, so the purpose of what we're looking here is to understand what Yahweh had in his mind when he created man and woman. See, all of us have in our own minds what it means to be a man or a woman. And we're not talking about those that are dealing with gender confusion issues. Let's go deal with the basic that I'm sure most of you are with, is the idea of that he created them man and woman. Okay. Societally, we know we have ideas about this. Culturally, we have ideas about this. But, you know, what we want to understand is, what did he have in mind when he decided to make man? And then when he decided to make woman? To understand the roles and responsibilities that men and women have, individually, as husband, as wife, as father or mother, as a member of the body of Messiah. In other words, the vertical relationships with the Father and the Son are relationships that way, or with ministry. We talked about this a little bit today in the Deuteronomy readings in chapter 17. Understanding submission and accountability, community relationships with each other, friendships, boundaries, all these kind of things. So you have a certain thing that you need to understand as a man individually or as a woman individually. And then you have certain things that you have to understand if you end up in the role of husband or wife. Because husband and wife is not just a man or a woman. You know, I heard somebody once teach that the problem with people is that when they get married, they stay a man and a woman. Men and women don't get along that way. But a husband and a wife can get along fabulously. But you have to change your role mindset from man to husband, from woman to wife. Okay? And then, of course, we have another role that happens. We can become fathers and mothers. Well, that's not the same required skill set as being husband and wife or just individually. It's a whole different sort of role that you have to have. And then we deal with our fact that we are in the body of Messiah. Okay? So how do we deal with the Father and the Son? How do we deal with our vertical relationships within the idea of a framework of a congregation and assembly with ministry and that kind of thing? You know, one of the things that we talk about very much is that everybody, when we do these classes, we talk about that everybody is in the middle of the vertical, except for the Father. Okay, the Father's right at the top. There's nobody above him. But everybody, including the Son, is in the middle, which means that everybody must learn to submit, and everybody has to learn how to lead or be accountable and cover something, because you're in the middle. That means there are those that you are underneath, so to speak, and you must submit to, that you've come under, and those that are under or have come under you. Okay? And so you have to know how to do those roles. Yeshua had to know exactly how to be absolutely, totally submissive to his Father, but also how to then lead those who the Father gave him. All right? So there are submission issues and accountability issues. And then, of course, we're forming a community, a forever community. And so now we've got all kinds of community relationship stuff. Okay, because now, you know, maybe you figured out how to be a father, a mother, a husband, a wife, an individual, whatever. But now you got to do, how do I do this in the context of a community? What does that look like? But not what does it look like to me, what's it look like to him, right? Not what it looks like to you, but what's it look like to him? How are we supposed to deal with our friendships and boundary issues and stuff like that? Okay? So I'm hoping that through this is going to be the beginnings of the study. I mean, we're not going to get that far in the two classes that we have, I don't think. I mean, we do have a couple hours each time, so who knows, but, you know, I've got several pages of notes, and normally I get through a part of a page, and that's all we get done in a few hours. But we'll see how this goes. So the idea is for us to understand the context is here, so we understand ourselves in the context of Yahweh, Yeshua, and Torah. This is what we're trying to do. Because after all, through the process, we are looking to be transformed into that image of that, right? They're giving us the example of what that looks like. And so we're transforming, hopefully, into that. So we want to understand ourselves, whether you're man or woman, in the context of Yahweh, Yeshua, and Torah. We're going to understand why we struggle. This is what we're going to talk about mostly today and on Sunday, because that's what I'm going to have time to deal with right now. I'm not going to go into just absolutely explaining, well, what he intended and all this, but I want to explain to you why you struggle. Because really, that's really the big problem, is why we struggle. So I want to understand why we struggle and understand our areas of brokenness and damage. Okay? You're all broken and damaged. And so when you're dealing with everybody, when you're dealing with each other, realize that as much as you want them to treat you a certain way, because after all, you know you're broken and damaged. And so people should be aware of that, and they should treat you, nice and gently. But you know what? They're broken and damaged too. And sometimes we only think about that plank in our own eyes. We're only thinking about ourselves. Well, often. Because we're much more aware of our own pain, our own brokenness, our own issues, our own struggles, that we forget the other person is going through their own set of stuff. And sometimes the two trigger each other instead of help each other. Okay? And so if your stuff and my stuff really match very poorly, we're going to really irritate each other, because each of our stuff is going to trigger the other person's stuff. And I'm going to be mad at you for not having, understand. Don't you understand all my stuff? And you're going to be thinking the same thing. Don't you understand all my stuff? And we're only thinking about our own stuff. Okay? So we struggle and our brokenness and our damage. How did we get this way? What has us trapped in this sort of state that we're in? I'm asking a lot of questions. Okay, we're going to start answering those questions here in a little bit. What has us trapped in the state? Well, I'll tell you what has us trapped in the state is you got to understand how we got there and how we got trapped. Part of what happened is we had programming. Okay, we were programmed. You're in the matrix. No. Look, but you were programmed by, your own experiences. Because some experiences have nothing to do with culture. You had an experience. You had a positive or a negative experience. And that will have helped to make you feel like you should or shouldn't be doing something, or you can or can't be doing something. There's the culture that you grew up in. Help to program the way you see your roles. Your experiences help you to see your roles. Society, big influencer or programmer on how you see your roles. And then the spiritual stuff. Look, the church tried to program you pretty good. Some of you were very well programmed, very well churched, as they would say. And so you're trying to deprogram. That's the hard part. Learning is not hard at all. Unlearning, really tough. Okay? Learning, really no big deal. I mean, think about the amount of stuff little children learn from the time they come out of the womb. Learning's not hard at all. Little struggles, boom, few tries at something, next thing you know, you're doing it. Unlearning, very difficult, because you end up with patterns of behavior that become reflexive, where you don't think, you just do. You just respond, you react, right? So programming is a big part of this. And then, your experiences, your physical, emotional, your financial, your spiritual, all these things, you have your own experiences that only tend to either make you even stronger in what society, culture, etc. have been putting on you, or turn you into an outsider in there. And also being an outsider makes you feel isolated, alone, different, what's wrong with me, all kinds of wonderful negative thoughts. So that's the other reason why you're struggling and how you ended up this way, is that we have a problem with our thinking. We talked about this many times in the teaching, What Are You Thinking? Or The Heart of the Matter, where we talk about the line of movement from thought to emotions attaching to it, to creating an action. The actions lead to habits. The habits lead to a destiny, ultimately. Okay, I don't want to make it, some of you are thinking, a destiny. No, it just means you'll end up somewhere. Okay? I mean, if I get in my car and start heading east, I'll end up somewhere. If I start heading west, I'm going to end up somewhere. So think of your destiny simply as, right now, you are in a destiny that everything that you did up to this point has brought you to. And you're thinking, well, I didn't want to end up here. Well, but all the decisions and choices and things that you did up to this point is what that got you here. I don't mean here like in this building today. I mean like where you are in your life in general, okay? Actually, all those thoughts and things is actually where you got you here, the good stuff. You made a decision to submit to Yahweh and Yeshua, to embrace Torah, to keep your second tithe, to come into a place like this. This is a destiny where all those thoughts led to emotional attachments, which led to actions and developing a habit of tithing and etc. Well, you end up here. Okay, so good and bad things come out of all of this stuff. But this is how we got to be where we are. And so ultimately what I'm hoping you're going to be empowered to do at some point is to be able to make a decision and a commitment regarding moving forward in your life. Okay, so that was just sort of a setup, nice bunch of little question marks. Okay? We good so far? All right. So you excited about where we're going? Awesome. All right. Okay, 3 people are excited. I'll talk to you 3. Okay, so. Oh, you don't have to placate me now. I'm not blue. I don't need placating. Okay. From struggle to victory. Okay, here we go. So we've been struggling. We're broken. We're damaged. And obviously, a lot of people want, and I know I hate to even use the word because it's sort of such a Christian thing. Well, we're going to have victory over all of this. Well, that's really the whole thing, is we're going to struggle from struggle to victory. So how do we do this? All right, so you're going to identify and acknowledge the areas of struggle in your life. See, we have to be open and honest about what's really going on. Now, this may require help, input, counsel from others, because you're too close to the situation. And you've got pride, and you've got ego, and you've got other situations. Also, you've been living it so long, you don't necessarily know that what you're doing is really actually not good for you or other people. Because after all, in your mind, it's just that's the way you've always been, and it never even occurred to you that it was a problem. And then all of a sudden you find out some of the things you've been doing are actually causing problems for people. You may have been around a lot of people that just weren't actually willing to, for whatever reason, to say anything to you, so you just assumed everything was fine. And so we first have to identify and acknowledge the areas of struggle in our lives, okay? And of course, you're going to need help with that. Okay. Second thing is to identify the cause or causes of the struggles, the issues, the problems. Whatever it is that you figured in point number one, now we got to figure out what's causing it. And then you may need help and counsel with that. You're going to see a pattern through all the things. I'm going to go through 6 things here, and all of them have to do with, or 5 things, and then sort of a wrap up. But all of these things you're going to really need help with. We are lacking in modern day, independent Americans and Canadians, wherever. We have people from all over the world. But everybody in modern day 2019, we're all capable of handling ours. I don't need anybody's help. I'm not going to go and lower myself to that. I know I need help, but I don't trust anybody. Okay? We got all kinds of reasons why we don't get help. I'm afraid. What if I find out what's wrong with me? I got to see where I wrote it. Wait, I wrote something in here that I need to tell everybody. Let's see. Where did I write it? I don't even know where I wrote it. But what I said was this. You're all weird. You are. You are strange, you are weird, but you don't know it. You think other people are strange and weird. I actually told that all to the Gadol class. The first words out of my mouth when they sat down for me on Monday night to find out how to have the best feast. I said, first of all, you need to know that as you're looking at each other, you're all weird. They looked at me like, what? I said, you're a teenager. By definition, it makes you weird because you're not a kid, you're not an adult. Okay? That's kind of a weird place to be. And sometimes you feel like you want to be like the kid. Sometimes you want to be an adult. You really don't know how to do either of them anymore because you feel a little awkward trying to do the kid thing because you know you're too big for it. And then the adult thing, you have no clue what you're doing. So it's a weird place to be. But then you grow up and be an adult and you realize you've had no training whatsoever. And now you're weird again because you thought you'd get to adult and you'd have it all figured out. See, but nobody trained you during the weird teenager part how to be an adult. So you're all weird, man. I'll tell you right now. I know, I'm looking at you. Goodness gracious. Okay. But we're all weird. By weird meaning we're strange, we're different, we don't seem to fit in. All of us have moments and places where we don't really fit in, we feel awkward, we feel uncomfortable, whatever it is. It's very rare to find somebody who's totally comfortable everywhere all the time. Okay? And if you do find somebody like that, they're weird. Okay. Okay, I need Manny's got that on his phone for me. All right. So we want to identify the causes of the struggles, the issues, the problems, what it is that you're struggling with. We also want to identify and acknowledge, now here's the important part. Now please pay attention to this. You got to own it, right? So you have to acknowledge your role in it. Most of you, at some point in your life, some of you are still always pointing, or most of the time pointing the finger at circumstances, people, this and that, anything but yourself. Okay? What's my problem? What's my cause? Well, if my wife or my husband or my brother or my parents, if I'd have been raised somewhere else, you had a role in this somehow. I'm not saying that everything happening in your life is your fault, but by the time you get to be an adult, and I've only got the adults in the room, you had times and opportunities to make choices. Now, yes, you grew up at a point when you were at an age where you didn't have a choice, and you didn't have the freedom to make the choices. But at some point, you did. And some of the choices you made are why you still struggle. So you got to start to understand your role in why you're all weird, why you're all messed up, broken, damaged, etc. Some of the broken and damaged is not done to you. Some of it was stuff you did to yourself. Some of it. I'm not want to speak in that whole victim mentality thing. I'm not trying to, because I know there are people that get abused and the abuser's always saying, well, you did this to yourself. I'm not saying that. But there are things that you are responsible for. You could have made different decisions that would have set you in a direction that would have freed you from some stuff. And because of these other programming issues and thought patterns and not having guides or anybody to help you, you didn't make good choices. You need to own that. Why? Because if you can own that, you can also own that there's a path to victory. If you can own that you had a part in being where you are in the negative part of it, that means that you can also change things and be in the positive side of it. Does that make sense? Amen? Okay? I mean, yeah, let's. So you have to acknowledge that you have a role in your struggle. It may be big, it may be small. It depends on how much freedom of choice you've had. Okay? You have to also consider that even in that, you may require help and input and counsel from others to help you see what you've done in your own life. Because you may have people close enough to you that know you long enough, close enough friends, et cetera, to say, well, actually, some of this stuff that we've been watching you do, we've watched you do this to yourself. Okay? And so you may want to get some help with that. All right, you need to acknowledge that there is, this is important now, and really hard for some of you that have really struggled for a long time, you have to acknowledge the reality that there is a solution. There is. Why would you be here if you didn't think there was a solution? You know that there's a path, there's a way, you know there's a truth, you know Yeshua, you know the Father. So even in being here, on some level, you acknowledge that there is a solution. Some of you only think the solution will come in the kingdom with the wiping away tears and all that stuff. No, you can have joy now. You can have peace now. You can have love now. You can have all those things now. It's going to take a little bit more to do than later, but you can have it now. Okay? So I want you to acknowledge that there is a solution, even if you you can't see it yet, okay? Because most of you are struggling in, I shouldn't say that. Most of you have areas where you struggle that you can't see the solution. Okay, maybe you have one or two areas, maybe there's a lot of them, but there are areas where you struggle, and you need to first always go at it knowing there is a solution. I know there's a solution. Edison, when they asked him, I don't know if this is true, maybe it's urban legend, but when he was making the light bulb, he failed at it hundreds of times. I think it was over 1,000 times. And they asked him as he was failing all those times, did it discourage him? He said, no. I always knew there was a solution. I just now eliminated 800 times ways it doesn't work. But he always knew he could make one. You understand what I'm saying? So we need to acknowledge that there is a solution. And again, this may require help, input, counsel from others. Then we have to acknowledge that there is a process or a path that will bring the solution. Okay, the solution is not going to be an anointing and prayer. It's not going to be just moving from Sunday to Saturday or stopping eating pork. Okay? You're going to have to do some work. Why? Because you've been doing it the other way for so long. It's going to take a while to unlearn, retrain yourself, and then it takes time also for results to track back. Okay, you do reap what you sow. Thankfully, it's not immediate. Because if it was, we'd all be dumb. Not dumb, we'd all be dead. Because we do things that we should reap death for. But he gives us a time frame to fix it. If we would own it and fix it by repentance, fix it by restoration, whatever we need to do, then we don't have to have the death. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, that's on the spiritual side of it. So we're thankful that these things don't work immediately. So that's the same thing with the solution. Your life has been, messed up for a long time. Believe that it can be fixed. Learn how to fix it. There is a path, there's a way to fix it, but then be patient because it's going to take time to fix. That's why when I've worked with people, I said, look, I'd like you to trust me and give me 6 months. Give me a year. Give me something like that where that you're not going to argue and because it's not going to get results because we had one counsel session, now your life's fixed. Okay? You're not going to watch one video, listen to one teaching, and I'm not even just talking about like Torah stuff. You can go find something in psychology that deals with your issue, find a fairly charismatic, a good teacher of it that made a video or had a book on maybe you're struggling with insecurity or depression or anger. You can find stuff like that, but reading one book or watching one thing isn't going to fix your problem. It may give you the tools to fix the problem, and you have to start applying them consistently over a period of time to fix the problem. But just having the information, right? Information versus relationship. What's the difference? In the relationship part as opposed to the information part, you're applying the information over a period of time to develop what's called a relationship. Okay? So you have to acknowledge that there is a path or a process to this. And again, this most likely will require help, input, and counsel from others. And by others, I mean there will be somebody outside of just you that you would have to get it from. By others, I don't necessarily mean you need to have 15, 20 people inputting into your life. That will cause you only confusion and frustration. Now, you may need different people for different stuff you're struggling with. Okay, it depends on your area of your struggle. I mean, if it's a psychological, emotional problem, you may need somebody different to help you with it than if it's a health problem, for example, okay? They may need a totally different type of thing. Maybe it's a finance problem. Maybe you need a different person for that. So you may need 3 or 4 people to help you with those areas, but you don't need 25 or 30 of them, okay? Because then you get 2 problems, confusion and paralysis by analysis. You're overstudying but nowhere in there are you pulling the trigger to actually do something. You're just gathering information. What are you, a library? You don't need all that information just gathered around, okay? Okay. So, you need to find a guide to show you the path to victory, how to walk it out, do the work, clean up the mess in your life, how to submit and be accountable, and also to show you, this is important, that you have the power of choice. Okay, that you have the power of choice in all things. I even said that today during the Deuteronomy reading Torah study part. This morning I said, it's your journey, you do what you want. Now, I didn't say, it's your journey, you can just do whatever you want. And that's one of those things, if it's written, you don't know how to take it. But if you hear the person's voice, I said it like this, it's your journey, you do it. Whatever you do, that's your journey. You do what you want. How you do it, that's your choice. Not like it's your journey, you now have permission for me to do whatever you want. Okay? I'm only here to give counsel and advice. You do whatever you want. It's your journey. Okay. So, as we continue, and I want to get into more detail and break these things down, we have to remind ourselves, and I haven't said it in this context here, but you must own that you are primarily responsible for all areas of your life. Okay? I've said it many times, but it needs to be said again. You must not just think that's a cute saying. You must own that reality. You are primarily responsible. Now, that doesn't mean there's no father that's watching over to help you in certain ways. Doesn't mean the Messiah doesn't help you in certain ways. Doesn't mean friends and other people. But you, not me, not Yeshua, not the Father, nobody, you are primarily responsible for all aspects of your life. Okay? And that's important that we know that. Christianity, the church, and all that stuff has given you this thought in your head that you must completely purge out, that somehow the magic wand of Yahweh comes down in waves or whatever, or Messiah, and just going to take away all your problems. That will only happen in areas where you can't, where he knows you can't do it. The miraculous interventions in the addictive, whatever, those extreme places where you can't do it. All right? So don't look for the things that you should. You know what? All of us who have children have probably said this phrase, I'm not going to do that for you, honey, because you can't do it. Because if you keep doing it for your kid, the kid will never learn how to do it for themselves. You are going to create an entitled and enabled kid. But some of you come to me, or whoever your teacher is, you'll come to your teacher and you'll be like, just tell me what to do. And some of you have come to me, I've told you, no. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Because that's a person just wanting to relinquish their power of choice and forgetting that you are primarily responsible. I said, I can give you some counsel. I can give you advice so you understand the choices that are in front of you and your options, right? Remember I said you're going to maybe require some help and input. I didn't say anything more than input, though. They are not there to decide for you. They're going to give you help and input and counsel. They're not going to tell you what to do, okay? And I don't do that either when I counsel. I say, this is what's in front of you. These are your choices. This is how maybe you should, just so you can see things the way, I'm just giving you how I see them, but you have to make the choice, all right? Because if I make it for you, if I'm wrong, I've lost you completely. If I'm right, I've lost you completely. Because now you're just only going to always want to be codependent and have me be codependent with you and take all of that authority on me. So I've lost the whole point of the role, is to guide, advise, okay? All right. I think I'm going to interrupt this program for a public service announcement. For those of you that have children, because this actually applies to this, but I want to kind of bring it through. Some of you who've counseled with me understand what I'm about to say because I've told you this exactly, but I'm going to tell everybody the same thing. Because I look at my role as a parent and you as the children, okay? Not in a negative way, but just like as a role. But I'm going to tell you what level of children I'm talking about. When children are first brought into the world, up until maybe that 11, 12, 13 range, they really don't know what to do. They're okay not knowing, and they come to you all the time for help. Mommy, help me. Daddy, help me. Mommy, help me. Daddy, help me. And they know that you control everything, own everything, and are the full authority in their life. Whether they fight it and everything else, I'm not talking about that. Deep down, they know, though. Because when they're in trouble, they know where to go to get help and everything else. And then they turn weird. They become teenagers. And they're not really kids in that more. And now they become awakened and aware that, oh, I can make choices. I have my own money. I can buy things. Or at least I think I should be allowed to, but mom won't let me spend it. Dad won't let me spend it. But it's my money. Husband's wife have the same thing, right? Wife makes money, or the husband, it doesn't matter, both of them, it doesn't matter which one. Whoever theoretically is holding those purse strings, the other one's like, it's my money though, why can't I spend it? The other one says, no, you can't because our budget, blah, 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 right? Doesn't matter, it could be the husband or the wife. Whether it should be which one, we're not talking about. I'm just saying in reality at the moment, right? So in that weird spot, if you're a parent and you have a weird child, meaning they're a teenager, you have to recognize, as I have to recognize with you, and that's why I don't tell you what to do, I advise, that I literally have no control over you. Do you understand that? This is not a cult. I have absolutely no control over what you do or don't do. I don't want it, but I don't have it, okay? And I'm in a rational enough mind to recognize that I don't have control. And that's also what you got to learn with your teenager. You've lost control. And they've lost control too. We're going to talk about control quite a bit in a minute. Okay, either today or Sunday, but we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to talk about control, being controlled, and out of control. And what happens is, as you parent, you have to recognize that you have to find a way to transition into a place of valued advisor, valued counsel. That's what I'd like to be with the people that I get a chance to serve, that they would come and respect me as a valued advisor, where they come saying, I know I'm going to get good counsel, I'm going to learn something, I still have my own choices to make, I'll still be up to me to decide to do it or not, but I'm looking for counsel, okay? And there's a trusting enough relationship with a valued advisor or counselor where you're willing to share things about your life because you trust them, because you know they may find out or hear something that they may be like, hold on, time out, that might not be the best thing to be doing. That's probably not a good idea type of advice, okay? So it's somebody you can talk to kind of check in with and have a little pulse check, so to speak, and say, am I okay in this? This is what my thinking is going. Does that sound like I'm on the right path there? So you have to have these valued advisors. So parents who are struggling with teenagers, and I've counseled some of you, so I know there's plenty of that going on. I have my own struggles with it, but I'm working hard to transition so that they see me as valued advisor. Because ultimately, you can't stop them. You think you can, but you can't. Well, I won't, I'll make them. Really? How many of you have tried that and seen how good that goes? It doesn't work. It only makes them backlash worse. Okay? And I've had to give counsel where the parents looked at me like, you're out of your mind. And what I've said is things like, one time I had a parent that had a child that was sneaking out and going over to boyfriend or girlfriend's house. I'm not going to give away gender here. And, and who knows what they were doing. And the mom would finally find out or dad would find out. And they would crack down even harder, put the girl or boy on full lockdown. And they'd sneak out anyway. Because you're going to fall asleep at some point, unless you're me. My children can't wait that late at night to try to figure out how to sneak out. But most people go to bed reasonably early. And that kid's going to sneak out. Or they're going to go after school, or they're going to, while you're at work, or some other thing. You're kidding yourself if you think you have that kind of control. Oh, I'm not going to let my kids have any electronics. So they'll look at somebody else's. Everybody they know has a phone in their pocket. Or a tablet, or whatever. Oh, my kids aren't going to read these kind of books or watch these kind of books. They're going to see it anyway. Get to the place of advisor. Help them to understand what's the potential downfalls for what they're doing. That's what we're talking about here. I just wanted to give you that little side public service announcement because you need to know that this applies from here to here, but then with you and your children as well. If you're not doing this transition, you're going to lose them as soon as they turn 18 or 20 and they can get out of that house. And they will not call you for advice. They're not going to tell you what they're doing. And so what my counsel was with that one couple was, you know what? Let her do it. Let him do it. Again, not telling if it was a boy or girl, but let him or her do it. And they were like, what? I said, yeah, don't give them permission to do it. But stop locking them down. Sit down with them and say, look, I want to trust you. I realize and recognize I can't stop you. But what I want to tell you is this. The only trouble you're going to have with me is if you don't tell me, because if you don't tell me, I can't do my main role. You ask my children what my job is, and they will tell you to keep them safe. Okay? That's also my job here, by the way, to keep all you safe. So actually, we used to do this little thing. I'd ask my daughter, what's my job? Keep me safe. And they say, what's your brother's job? Keep her. I always asked him to keep his sister safe. But my job was to keep everybody safe. Mom, daughter, son, everything. Everybody safe. So I always told my children, for example, that when we went to the store, 5, 6 years old, 4, 5 years old, little ones, okay? I told them, what's my job? Keep us safe. Okay, do you want to make daddy's job hard? No, I want to be safe. Okay, if I can't see you, you're not safe. So you need to be looking around and make sure you can see me. Because if you can't see me, I can't see you. That's not always exactly true, but you understand I'm talking to little kids, okay? And you know what? They never ran away from me. Because I made sure they understood this is how they are kept safe. Now, the more I put them on grab hold, lockdown, you stay by my side, everything else, they're going to want to run away and do whatever because it's that contrarian rebellion, trying to find their own sovereignty. Same thing with you as adults. Still, you're trying to figure out your own sovereignty. Submission is something that must be done voluntarily. Okay? You must choose to trustfully submit. And that child did that with me because they understood that that's what kept them safe. Guess what? In the structure of the body, that's what keeps you safe too. Finding someone you can trust that you can submit to brings safety. Some of you have that now and never had it before, haven't had it for a long time, and you now finally feel safe. And in the safety, you now are making much better decisions, and your life is flourishing much more than it was before. I mean, obviously, there's still struggles, other things to still do. That comes in the safety of the framework. And in that framework, if everybody's doing their role right, things are much safer for everybody. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Okay? And you know what? They told me that the situation improved quite a bit. Because I told them, make sure the child knows that if you're going to do this, which we don't want you to, we think it's a bad idea, we don't think it's safe, but if you're going to do it, you need to tell me. But if I tell you, you're going to get all mad. No, we're not going to get all mad. We already just told you we don't like it, we don't agree with it, but I want to know. I want to know because if I know where you are and you don't come back at any reasonable time, I know where to send the police to look for you. If I don't have to say, I wake up in the morning and you're gone and I don't know where you are? Or what if I wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, I happen to just check and you're not in your room and I don't know where you are? Now I don't know what to do. I don't know if you're safe. I don't know anything. But if I know you said to me, I'm going to so-and-so's house, and by the way, you tell the child, but if you lie, you're still not safe, because that's part of what was going on. Oh, I'm going to so-and-so house, so they were going over to either the boyfriend or girlfriend's house, the same gender, and they would sneak over to the other gender's house, the one they were kind of dating, sort of, whatever they were doing. No. You need to get your children to know that it's safe to talk to you honestly and openly. That the really only real bad problem that they can have with you is to lie. And I think my children probably tell me close to everything. Most parents that tell me that, oh, my children tell me everything, I know they have no idea what their kids are hiding. Because I don't think they've ever made the effort like I'm talking about to change the roles. I mean, they may interrogate their children and think they're getting the truth out of them. But if you incentivize it so that they know they don't have to, but they can choose to, because it makes them safe, you may find that you actually get some better results. And the parent said, I hate this idea. I said, remember I said that in some of the points I made was acknowledge these realities. You need to acknowledge the realities of the limitations of what you can and can't control. You cannot control your teenagers. Not really. Maybe for the few minutes they're in your house, but you know what? You'll get distracted, they'll be off in a corner, and who knows what they're doing. You just don't know. So don't think with this delusion that you might have going on in your head that somehow, oh, my kids don't. Listen, I had that come up at a couple of feasts where I knew something about the children. Why? Because they told me. Like the child told me this terrible thing was going on that they were having a problem with. And I confronted the parents. The parents said, oh, no, my kid, no. I said, no, you don't know. Oh, don't tell me I don't know my kid. My kid tells me everything. Well, not this thing. Well, how do you know? Because they told me. Because they didn't know what to do about it. I said, you got to stop being all, kill the ego, kill the pride, and recognize the reality. You don't know. Unless you create an environment where they feel, because you know what? They don't know either what they're doing, and they'd love to talk to somebody about it. And they will to their friends who also are blind leading the blind into a ditch. But what if they knew they could really talk to you? Knowing that you're not going to judge them. And you got to behave. If they do come to you, tone it down. They could be struggling with sexual stuff, with drug stuff, with gender stuff, anything. I don't care how much it bothers you. You want to be the advisor, you better handle it. I'm not telling you to encourage it. I'm not telling you to accept it, like meaning that, hey, I'm endorsing it anyway. You can always maintain, I don't agree with this. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's wrong. But I love you, and I'm here to listen so I can give you counsel that maybe someday you might choose to listen to my counsel, whatever. Okay? You have to control that. All right? And so, that brings us now back to us. Okay? Because that's sort of the same thing here. Even though you're adults, I look at you in that same role as the weird teenagers, okay? You are needing counsel because those weird teenagers become adults who still don't have a clue what they're doing, and then eventually we end up being 40 and 50 and 60. We still don't know what we're doing. A little bit more because life has taught us some things, and maybe we've studied a few things out, so we're a little better equipped than we were when we were 18 and 20. But there's still areas that we struggle in. Otherwise, I'd never have any counsel sessions to do, okay? Oh, I didn't tell you. The real subtitle of this is How to Get Everybody Off My Counsel List So I Have More Free Time to Write Sermons and stuff. This is a completely self-serving message. All right. So why do we struggle in all of our relationships and roles? Okay? Marriages. Why do we struggle in marriages? Because it involves broken and damaged men and women. Untrained, unskilled. Why do we struggle in our parenting? Because it involves broken and damaged men and women who are untrained and unskilled. Our friendships. You ready? Because it involves broken and damaged men and women who are really untrained and unskilled. You'd think friendship shouldn't need skills and training. It does. We don't know how to be a friend. We don't. We mess it up all the time. Okay? How about covenant? There's a role called covenant. We talked about it for 55 parts. Because it involves broken and damaged men and women. I didn't put the untrained and unskilled in it, but I'm going to put that now. I think that's good. Untrained, unskilled. Okay? So what does the brokenness and damage look like? It looks like abuse. Anybody don't have to raise your hand for any of these things, but anybody had abuse in their life? Physical, verbal, sexual, trust and security abuse? I mean, if you have relationships where constantly people are being untrustworthy and breaching trust, that's sort of an abuse. Not that the individual, each one was abusive, but just it feels like abuse because it's happened to you repetitively. So you end up with an abused person response. You start feeling like someone who's abused, okay? We have an incredible amount of people in the body, in the world, that have been abused. Physically, verbally, probably more even verbal than even the physical stuff, just beat with a voice through either loud, vicious cursing at, that kind of thing, or screaming at, or even just softer, telling you, you're nothing. You'll never be anything. You're ugly. You're useless. You're stupid. Right? Those are all, eventually that abuse adds up. I can't even tell you the amount of sexual abuse that's out there. I mean, I counsel a lot of people, and I would say over the years, easily half the women, for sure, have had some sort of sexual abuse. They're not going to talk to you about it, and that's good. They don't need to be doing it, but I just need you to know. Guys, that's scary stuff, guys. And if you have daughters, that's the main reason my daughter's not in public school. Some of you decided you want to homeschool because I don't want that institution putting all that wrong teaching in my kid's head. Well, I can work with wrong teaching. I can override that with right teaching. My job is to keep her safe. She's not in school where she's not safe with those other teenage boys. Okay? Until I teach her how to be safe around boys. All right? And by the way, let me just put this out there. And some of you have seen me with my daughter, so you'll understand. I think that you need to understand with your children, I guess it's going to be family counseling as well as personal today. You need to understand with your children, men especially, your daughters need proper physical affection that helps to make them safe. Proper hugs, you safely wrapping yourself like a shield around them and holding them. Non-sexual safety enveloping. If you don't give them that, they're going to seek that from men from somewhere. Women need physical, safe feeling. So if you see my kids, both of them, my son too, they come up to me and they give me hugs all the time in front of anybody. Okay? And they will come. My daughter one time, talking about safety, we were at a service, I've talked about the story. I'm teaching, we weren't recording it at the time. I'm teaching. She's in the playground with the other kids because they'd already finished their class. There was a little play area behind the building, so they were just having a little fun. And she fell off of something. She's like 6 years old. And mom went to pick her up. Nope, she wanted dad. Dad makes her feel safe. Not that mom doesn't, but that's the role. So she ran through everybody all the way up to the microphone. I picked her up. I said, hold on, everybody. This comes first. And I took care of that. Was anybody there for that that's in the room? I can't even see. Our group has changed so much. It was many years ago. But, that's because I've done consciously, as well as instinctually, the effort that I am the safest place in the world to her. Men, that's what your daughters need more than anything. See, a lot of you women are all screwed up because your men in your life were the least safe place in your world. Whether it was your father or your brother, whoever it was, uncles, but you were not safe with them. That's made it really hard for you to understand the role of men. It's made it hard for you to make the selection of your relationships with men. It's made it hard for you I'm supposed to love my father. Oh, I hate that word. My father was the abuser. How can I say father? There's a healing that needs to come through in that. But for you men that have an opportunity still, you need to show your daughters proper affection That means that they can give you a hug, you can hold them, they can climb up on your lap and know that they can hide and be enveloped in safety. That the whole aura of, I've got you, you're safe. Then they don't seek it anywhere else. You know, my daughter gets confused sometimes when the other teenage girls that she's met over the years might be looking, like boy crazy, typical stuff. And she's just not had that as in this degree that they do because she's got her dad. She's like, she's only 14. I don't need any of that stuff. I'm not ready for that stuff. So she could just come and hide with me. Okay? And that's what we're talking about. But of course, generationally, when this isn't being done, think about it. How many men saw their fathers do that in the house properly that they could learn it from? Almost none. Okay? And so it's really tough for us to understand. By the way, I did not learn this from my parents. My parents did not do this. My father and I fought almost every day. But I did what I tell you guys all the time. I killed and ended that generational curse by saying, I am going to do this different. I said that way before I even met somebody to get married to. I was probably in my teenage years. I said, I am going to, if I ever get married and have children, I'm going to make sure that relationship is different. That they will be able to talk to me about anything without fear of anything I talked to my father about, somehow it became my fault and I got in trouble. And that trouble sometimes brought out a belt or whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You guys know what I'm talking about. There was no safety for me to share information. I did this thing, Dad. I don't know if it was right. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what to do. Can I share with you? Somehow it always turned into, what was wrong with you? You should have done this, you know, whatever. We don't know how to do these things. We don't understand our roles. And then we wonder how we get to this point and we're all screwed up. You were raised by screwed up people too. They're all broken and damaged, etc., right? And then we end up with what? Insecurity. Huge problem. Depression. How are you going to do your roles when you're insecure? You don't trust anybody. And those things get triggered on a regular basis. Depression. It's rampant. I mean, half the medications you find online and in the in the TV and all the commercials, all for antidepressant stuff. Self-worth issues. Well, you know, the stellar parenting that we saw and the other people that we ran into in our life, they made us feel wonderful, didn't they? You're great. Maybe when you were tiny and you made like a little drawing and it ended up on the refrigerator. But as soon as you started doing other stuff, making your own decisions, you were given some different counsel about how much your worth was. Okay? What other brokenness? We're broken in the submission area because we have a lot of control freak, dominant people that think that's imposing that is submission. You will submit, you know. That's not submission. Submission is given freely by you by choice. It is not commanded or demanded. Then it's not submission, it's control. Okay? We'll talk about that difference. We've got horrible relationship brokennesses in marriages, parenting, friendships, etc. Let's see, forgiveness issues. We have a real hard time either forgiving or being forgiven. Some of you have had your hardest time is forgiving yourself. No, you can forgive others, but you can't forgive yourself. You're so tough on yourself. You're at that high standard that you hold yourself up to, and then you can't let go of things when you have an issue, when you fall short. And so remember the model prayer in Matthew says, if you do not forgive others, including yourself, by the way, if you do not forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father, or your Father in the heavens, as it says, cannot forgive you. And you struggle and wonder why you struggle. Well, because you're not forgiven. What do you mean I'm not forgiven? Well, you don't forgive yourself. He's not going to forgive you if you don't forgive you. I'm not making that up. It's what he said. Right? Feelings of bitterness, anger, resentment, inadequacy, rejection. Oh, we got a lot of that going on too. A lot of people feel rejected. A lot of people have trouble with acceptance. Because even when they find some place where they can feel accepted, they're always waiting for the shoe to drop and get rejected. The insecurities kick in and all the other. It's just a spiraling, just buffet of terrible negative emotions that can all get triggered together, right? How about hurt feelings, PTSD. Now, when I say PTSD, I don't want you to think, well, I'm not in the military. Okay, look, it's a post-traumatic syndrome, okay? You had a trauma. Any of those abuses we talked about could leave you in a traumatic PTSD thing where it does, in other words, something can trigger you to be in an emotional state that's as if the abuse is actually happening, even though it's not, because something triggered it that was similar enough, initially feeling like that thing or sounding like that thing, that it could trigger. Like with the military people, all they have to do is hear something that sounds like gunshots or something that smells like, burnt something like maybe they'd smelled on, something that brings them back to a place. Well, guess what? All of us have that if we've had any kind of trauma. If you get triggered in any way, you've got some PTSD. Okay? Because the T should be related to the idea of something being triggered. The trauma being triggered. Okay? So post-trauma triggering is really kind of what it is. Because, I'll give you an example with my wife. My daughter fell at a feast and broke her arm. That was a huge trauma for both of them. Me too, but I'm more calm. I handle things. It is what it is, right? I have to deal with it. I wasn't happy about it, but my daughter called at another feast. She had fallen. She wanted to just tell me, didn't want to tell mom. She fell, hurt her wrist a little bit, but she didn't break anything. She was upset, was crying, and just wanted to talk to me for comfort. Well, my wife's like, what? What's going on? And as I'm trying to explain to her, she triggered back to that same place where the arm broke. And she was in the same panicked state when nothing really had happened. But that was a triggered response. She had no control over it. Okay? So that was a PTSD response. I think I want to study a lot more of this because I think we are all PTSD to a certain point. Just not in the classic sense of how it's usually with some sort of violent, like military type of thing where they call it that. But I think we're all susceptible to having the traumas triggered so that you're back in that place emotionally, even though that thing is really still not happening. But it brought you there because something about it was similar enough to trigger you. Okay? That's really tough because once you're triggered, you're out of control. You've lost control. It's not so much you're out of control, you are controlled. Okay? We're going to talk about control, out of control, and being controlled. You are being controlled by the triggered response. You are under control, but just not your control. The emotional triggered response is controlling you. This is now we're starting to get into some of this stuff. This is the real problem solver right here. If you can start to recognize what things are controlling you, and then you could start work on getting free from those things controlling you. Yeshua says, you shall know the truth. Okay, well, let's call the truth in this case reality. You'll have a knowledge of the reality that maybe you could be set free when you can acknowledge and understand what's really happening. Okay? We've got pride issues, ego issues, selfishness issues, panic issues, control issues. And by control issues, not only do you have things controlling you, but some of you, because your world is so out of control in general, or you feel that you don't have control, you try to impose control. There's a lot of different ways this can look, but I'll use one. Some of you have a shopping thing that you do. When your life seems to be out of control, you go and do something that you can't control. I can go make a choice and I can buy something. And it's not just the ladies. Guys can spend some money. Okay? Guys often just spend money on one thing that costs the same as 57 things you buy, ladies. Okay? But guys can spend some money. But the ladies like to shop when they feel like life is out of control, because I can go into the store, I am in charge of me, I can look at things, make a choice, and buy something, I'm in control. Meanwhile, they're forgetting that it's wrecking the budget and other things if they didn't really kind of plan it out right. But this is one of those reactions to having control issues. The need to be in control. Resentment, anybody dealing with some of that? That stuff's got to be released. That's toxic, it's poison. Pressures and expectations. Some of you feel like you're under so much pressure and then people expect so much, and a lot of that's actually self-imposed. Some of it's external. But a lot of it is self-imposed. Okay? Addictions. Addictions aren't just, what we don't want to think alcohol or drugs or pornography or like these clearly obvious things. You could be addicted to a lot of things. You could be addicted to anger. You could be addicted to health stuff in a way that's your. What are you spending most of your time, and you're sort of trapped into it being your obsession? Okay, it's a thing that can almost overtake all aspects of your life, because that's what all addictions do. They basically end up taking over all aspects of your life. Sports can be that way too. A sports fanatic. That's where the word fan comes from. A fanatic. So if it starts to take over your life. So what are you addicted to? Some of you are addicted to the news. Some of you are addicted to what's going on in Israel. Some of you are addicted to end time stuff and figuring out blood moons and the next asteroid they might destroy. But you might be addicted to something. And it's an out of balance part of your life, okay? So I just want you to think about that. You also could be addicted to victim syndrome. You want people to constantly look at you as a victim, so they take care of you and they placate you, and and that can be addictive. Because it's kind of like the baby that realizes if I cry, somebody will come and give me what I want. But that was supposed to stop when you were like 2, okay, where you could actually communicate with words. So you didn't have to just cry and have somebody come over and just figure out, I don't know, do you need this, do you need that? And they're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at you till you stop crying. Okay, of course, then you get old enough, they might just want to throw the kitchen sink at you, literally. I'll give you a reason to cry. I just gave a very small list that could be much, much bigger. Any wonder why we're broken and damaged? Okay, is there anybody in the room that I didn't hit at least one thing you're struggling with? I mean, that's I'm just saying. Can we all agree that at least a few of those items on that list that are whatever's in your life that's on that list, can you understand that is affecting the quality of your relationships? Your ability to walk in your role? Can we all agree on that? Okay, some of you just got all quiet after lunch. The tryptophan is kicked in from the chicken. Or whatever. You're all like, huh? My stomach's full and ate too much carbs and the sugar is just knocking me out. All right, so how do you begin? See, that was an hour just to kind of get us to where we can begin. Let me get a sip of water first here. All right, so where do you begin fixing this, dealing with it? All right, well, you start where you start. Well, that seems very obvious. But you got to understand, you start where you start. In other words, Yahweh called you when he did, fully knowing you and what you've been through. Because remember, you're not just anybody on the street who says, my life is hard and sucks and is a problem and I don't know what to do. You're someone who has been called and has a destiny that you're now aware of. An awesome and incredible destiny. And so in that calling out of the world, he called you fully knowing all your history, all your experiences, all the mess that got you to where you are. He's not missing any of the information. He saw it all. He is fully aware of everything that brought you to that moment, and yet he called you anyway. All right? Because some of you I know have had this thought, I don't know why he called me. I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to figure it out. How could you have that thought? He called you. All right. Yahweh does not make mistakes. We know that, right? Okay. Because he's the only one when we use the word perfect, we actually mean perfect. We don't just mean full of integrity, although that's included. He is literally perfect. Okay. That being said, he doesn't make mistakes. So you should never have the thought, I can't do this. Okay? Now, but you still have the thought. We're going to help figure out a way. I'm going to teach you some things that maybe ultimately can help you with that. Maybe not today. Maybe we'll try to get it done on Sunday. But just understand that you still have to at least acknowledge intellectually, if not emotionally, not in your system, that you were called because you can make it. You can do it. Maybe not from where you are right this second, but he knows that you have the potential to make a journey from where you are to where you'll start to recognize that you can do this. He fully knew everything about you before calling you. You start where you start, all right? Yahweh called you knowing that you could conform and transform into a Yeshua-like person, starting right where you are, right where you were when he called you. Say it again. Yahweh called you knowing that you could transform and conform into a Yeshua-like person, starting right where you were when he called you. You might want to put that down somewhere, mark it up, put it on your refrigerator, whatever, and remind yourself of that every day. He called you knowing that you could. Not that you would, but that you could. He also knows whether or not you'll do it, because he's already seen what happened after that. But he picked the people that could. Remember, some won't, some will. You get to choose. But he didn't handicap the thing by picking someone that couldn't. We agreed. All right, so you need to own that. He called you knowing that you could do this. Okay? Now, that being said, understand how you got to where you are. You are, and I said this a little bit earlier, but I want to kind of reiterate it. You are exactly, 100% exactly where all your previous decisions have taken you. Okay? Oh no, this is because of my parents. Stop that. You're not 12 anymore. Okay? Some of you are not 30 anymore or 40 anymore. Knock that off. You've had more life in your own control when you were away from the parents and everything else than you had life with them. Almost all of you spend more of your time on this earth outside of your parents' house. You have made most of the decisions in your life that up to this point, percentage-wise, you've made most of those decisions yourself. They were not imposed on you. Yeah, the first part of your life, yes. So you are exactly where those decisions are taken. Now bear in mind, you were dealing with a controlled type of out-of-control problem. You were programmed. You had influences that influenced those decisions. I'm not saying you're where you wanted to be. I'm not saying the outside influences didn't have an effect on where you are in terms of affecting your choices, your decisions. I'm trying to make sure you understand that you have the power to decide where you end up. You just didn't know you had it. I'll say that again. You have the power to decide where you end up. You may not have recognized that up to this point. You need to know that. You have that power. Because you are where your choices have taken you. But yet, now you got to look back and say, well, why would I make some of those dumb choices? Well, there are reasons. You were broken, you were damaged, you were influenced, controlled, or whatever. And we're going to talk about what that looks like here in a little bit. Are we good so far? Okay? Okay. In 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you will be, guess what? Exactly where the decisions you're making right now are taking you. Okay, I already told you what you did before it got you here. Guess what? It continues. There's a little delay on it, though. So what you do today doesn't mean that it's going to affect tomorrow immediately. But if you consistently do these things, remember we talked about destiny comes after habits, which are after actions, which came after emotions, which came after thoughts. Okay? And the habitual choices, the habitual behavior patterns lead to a destiny. The good news is, which I just said, is that you can choose to make the decisions now that will take you wherever you want to go. Wherever you want to go in the future, you can get there. You got to start making the right choices. It's your choices that... So remember we did a teaching. I thought it was the most important teaching I ever did. Didn't have any notes for it till Yah woke me up all night, made me write it down. Then I came in and taught it, called Making Decisions is the Reason You Exist. That's the whole point. Deuteronomy 8:2 is what? He wants to see by your decisions whether it's in your heart to keep the commandments or not. That's your Deuteronomy 8:2 test. There you go. I quoted a verse. Okay. Okay, so how do you start? Okay, you start where you start, so how do you start? You start by owning your responsibility for where you go from here. You have to own it. You no longer get to play the victim. Stop being the victim, waiting for the hero to show up and rescue you and sweep you up and off your feet or solve all the problems. Be the hero of your own life. I'm not saying you weren't a victim. See, I got to be careful when I speak because people only partially listen. I'm sure that there were moments in your life where you were a victim, that you were victimized in some way. I'm not minimizing that at all. But you have to stop being one. Stop being a victim. Okay? All those terrible things that happened in your life only needed to be lived once. You don't need to keep reliving them. We can clap for that one. Why would you relive stuff? Well, because you don't have a choice, because you've got habits and you've got habitual thinking patterns and emotional patterns and PTSD. That's why you keep reliving them. That's why you need to figure out how to stop reliving the negative, emotionally charged events of your life that are not happening anymore. I've met people who have had problems that happened to them when they were 4, 5, 10, 15, and now they're 60, 70 years old, and those things are still controlling their life, not because they're literally doing that, but because they're allowing it to. Okay, they're allowing it to. And I feel awful when I talk to these people because they can't understand it. I keep trying to help them understand. I said, well, never mind. I had one person recently, I said, look, you've never dealt with this. They got all offended. What do you mean I've never dealt with this? I've been in therapy for 25 years at one point. I said, but you never dealt with it. You threw a Band-Aid at it, you threw magic at it, whatever, but you didn't, did you do what they told you? The therapy obviously did nothing. You're exactly where you were. Because I'm looking at you now, maybe you were worse, but clearly this thing is handicapping your life in a horrible way. You've not dealt with it. Why would you when did this thing happen? When I was 15. How old are you now? 62. That's a long time to still living with something that hasn't happened since you were 15. I'm not saying that stuff doesn't have a long-lasting effect to some degree. It takes a lot to overcome it over time. But if you're not overcoming it at all, you're still having the same reaction and using it as a victimized excuse to go forward. Now you've empowered this thing. Let me start again. You had an awful, horrible, horrendous thing happen to you. Why would you give the person that did that to you that much power to ruin the rest of your life when they already ruined that moment? But that's what you're doing. And you don't know how to control it because a lot of it happened when you were like a very impressionable young person and etc. So I'm not minimizing that stuff, but you should be making the effort to find help so that person isn't still ruining your life. Some of you are dealing with people that aren't even alive anymore because they were old and you were young and they're not even around because now you're old and they're gone. And they're still ruining your life. You got to stop that. I'm not just saying, just stop that. You have to find the advisors, the help, the input that you need to learn how to stop that. Because it is controlling you. But you don't understand, it was awful. Yes, it was awful. Why is it still awful? Because you're allowing it to be. You've not made the efforts to deal with this thing that is hurting you so much. And don't say, well, you don't understand. Everybody has trauma. Don't tell me I don't understand. Okay, all of us had something. You just think yours is worse because it was you. Okay? Okay, you may think it was traumatic because you were sexually abused by your father for a couple of years when you were young. I'm not minimizing that. But is that any different than maybe being a little bit older and literally being toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose, screaming with your father for 15 years? Very different. Very damaging. Both of them. So you can't say mine is worse. What makes yours worse is if you let it still control you. If it's completely still has power over you, then yours is worse. Not because it was actually worse, but because you're allowing it to be worse. Okay? Every one of you, whatever you're going through, there are other people that found a way to deal with it and find success in their life. Every one of you, I don't care what it was. I promise you, whatever it is, we can find somebody who had the exact same thing, as similar as can be. Well, my father, okay, they had a father too, and he sexually, and he did. I can find you somebody, and they figured out how to overcome that trauma. By overcome, I mean where it becomes a memory that is now safely in your head where it reminds you of what's necessary to stay safe, but it's no longer disabling your forward motion. It's no longer handicapping your ability to have relationships. Because you should have learned some lessons from the thing that happened so that you, if you're ever really, not PTSD, but in an actual similar enough situation, you'll recognize it and you'll know what to do. So the information's important. I'm not saying, like, when I tell people the whole thing, well, forgive and forget. No, I forgive, I'm not forgetting. Now, by not forgetting, that doesn't mean that I'm holding it against a person. I'm just going to learn a lesson, remember it, so that it might be useful to me in the future. Okay? But when I forgive, I now treat the person in a genuine state of forgiveness. But you know what? You may have damaged a relationship with me, which means that I forgive you, but the damage is done. You've ruined that relationship. That's a price of the bad behavior. Sometimes there's a cost. There's a part of the problem with all the forgiveness stuff going on, especially in Christianity, where people will say, well, you have a forgiveness problem. And you say, what do you mean? You say, well, you haven't forgiven me. You say, yes, I have. Well, our relationship isn't restored. Restoration is not an automatic fruit of forgiveness. If you did something to me that was reasonably, according to most people's standards, whatever, horrible, I can forgive you. And maybe you genuinely are repentant and you want to, and you're not going to do it to me again. But that doesn't mean I'm going to put myself back there in that relationship because you've done damage to the relationship. That's a consequence of your choice. But what I can't do is allow it to now continue to affect me in a negative way going forward. Take the information, figure out how to store it. There's a lot more to this, obviously, in that process, so that you have the information available to you, but it's no longer handicapping your forward motion. Is that fair? You understand what I'm saying? Because it's like trying to walk with a ball and chain or some heavy weight dragging behind you. You just can't get anywhere. And it hurts because you got a chain around you and you're dragging a heavy weight, and that's just chafing you and tearing into your skin, and it just hurts. So you got to start by owning your responsibility for where you're going from here. Okay. Yahweh knows every detail of what you've done and what was done to you, yet he called you just where you are, and just as you are and where you are in your journey. Now, he wants to see what you do with his calling. That's the point. Okay? He called you knowing where you were, exactly all that stuff, but now, he called you because he wants to see now. He already knew the before stuff. He's sitting there going, I want to see what you're going to do now. What are you going to do now? And I'm not saying not just halachically. Halakha is the walk, the Torah walk. He's not looking at you just from a halachic point of view, but more importantly in your development as what he created you, a man or a woman. Okay? He created you to be halachically walking, but he wants you to be in a role. Are you going to understand what it means to be a man, to be a woman? As was in his mind, what he intended. Okay? When you make something, if you're artistically creative, okay, you make something. Like maybe when you were a kid, they gave you clay to play with, and you made something. And you knew what it was. Maybe not everybody else knows what it is. And you have to sometimes explain to people, though, this is what that thing is. Well, Yahweh made a man, and then he made a woman. He had something in mind. He was setting out to make something, and he understood what it would do and how it would function. He had expectations. We got to figure out what that is and come in line with him. All too often I run into people, they want to impose their understanding of it. It's like when I did the teaching on divorce, remarriage, and putting away. I can't tell you how many people, first of all, in a positive way, that blessed. Okay? It really did set a lot of people free from a lot of nonsense. On the other side of it, though, I had people that are so broken and so damaged, they didn't understand a word I said. Because they would call me and contact me and say, but what about this part over here in this verse? And I'm like, I spent 30 minutes on that verse. They were so handicapped. And I'm not picking on them. I'm not mocking them. I felt bad because they were so handicapped by what was beat into them about the beliefs about divorce, remarriage, that they were not able to hear the teaching. They could not receive what was coming out on the teaching. They literally were acting as if that verse hadn't even been covered on it. I said, did you listen to the teaching? Oh, yeah, I listened to it 3 times. I'm like, it was a Matthew verse. I said, I spent like half the teaching on that section. See how handicapping that could be? An emotional trauma? Because they had been beaten on so much because they had been divorced. This is almost always the way it comes. It's a person that's been divorced or the spouse hasn't been divorced or either one, and now they're remarried, and then somebody gets a hold of them and tells them they're in sin and that they need to get a divorce, and then, but now they're actually in a relationship that's working and it's good, and they had learned their lessons from their previous marriages, and they want to, which was the motivator, by the way, to do the teaching in the first place. Although it's really funny, though. I think I had to put it in the comments. Because somebody wrote in the comments, like on the teaching on YouTube, made a comment, well, this guy must have been married more than once and he's just trying to justify his choice. I said, no, actually, my wife is my one and only. Okay, haven't had more than one, 21 years, same wife. Okay, didn't do a teaching to justify anything else. All right? Although, to be humorous, when we went to get our marriage license, my wife was reading hers and I was reading mine, and we were like filling them out, on a little table there in the courthouse, wherever it is. And and she says to me, it only has space for 9 ex-husbands here. I don't know what to do. So I immediately said, well, do what I did. I attached another paper on the back. Always quick-witted, right? Because she couldn't believe there was space for 9. I think I'd be dead before I could get to 9. I'm just saying, I understand 2 or 3 or whatever. 9? Goodness. All right. But you see, a person can't even receive if they're so toxic in an area, if they're so convinced, or actually it wasn't even convinced. The people that contact me are the ones who are absolutely terrified and freaked out that they're going to make a mistake or that they already made a mistake and they don't know what to do. I got one guy that keeps calling me, and the problem is he listens to me, I set him straight and he's okay, and then he goes and listens to everything else on YouTube, and then he gets all confused again, and then he comes back to me. And the guy's not, by the way, the guy is, I forgot what he's Baptist, he's Lutheran, he's something. He's not even part of anything. He just happened to find the video on YouTube. And I'm trying to help him anyway. And I told him, I said, the second time he called, the third time, I said, sir, look, here's your problem. You need a teacher. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're confused, and that's why you keep calling me, is because you keep listening to too many teachers. I said, find yourself a teacher, and then when you go to that teacher, listen to him. Don't listen to, because he comes to me and then he calls me back after listening to 3 more videos that don't agree with what I said. I said, do what you want. I've already told you my video I made is all I'm going to give you. I'm just going to back it up and say that I agree with what I said. But he couldn't hear what was in the video. It's just too much toxicity and too much damage in there. More than that, there's too much fear. Okay? There's too much fear. So you are responsible for where you go from here. So we've got to start off with owning what you've done. Okay? We'll talk about what's done to you second. But right now, we've got to own what you've done. You're not innocent. You did some stuff. Some of you blocked it out, too. I have talked to people that all of a sudden stuff will come up and they'll realize, wait a minute, I did do stuff like that. Because sometimes they'll ask, they'll be talking about one of their children, and the children are doing something. I say, well, didn't you do stuff like that when you were a kid? No. Well, then wait, well, maybe I did. We can block stuff out. You need to own what you have done. You are primarily, I wrote it down here, the same thing. You are primarily responsible for all aspects of your life, including all the ramifications of your thoughts and actions. Own your choices. That doesn't mean that you are sitting there going, I own it, I'm glad I did it and everything. But you own it from the point of view of, I made those choices. And those choices did get me here. Own what you've done. Okay? And some of them have long-term ramifications. Things in you are broken literally or damaged literally. Okay? Because you may have broken something or hurt something or injured a part of your system or your body or whatever, your health. You could have damaged something in the bad choices you make. All right? But own it. There is something wrong with you. That was the verse I was looking for. That was not the verse, but my notes. There's something wrong with you, all of you. Because there's something wrong with everybody. You need to figure out what you've done, what's wrong in you. We're so good at looking at what's wrong with everybody else. Can you believe so-and-so? They did blah, blah. Can you believe so-and-so? I mean, we love to talk about everybody. Own your stuff. Stop worrying about everybody else's stuff. Why do you think Yeshua gave the plank twig thing? Own your stuff. It'll keep you plenty busy. You should have no time for everybody else's stuff. You got enough stuff. Husband and wife, same thing. Oh, but my husband. Oh, but my wife. Own your stuff. And then both of you work on your own stuff. But own your stuff. Okay? You need to work on whatever's wrong in you. Own it, repent, learn from the experience, release it, and move forward. Okay, own it, repent for whatever needs to be repented of. If you don't know what it means to repent, listen to the teaching called, you ready for this? Repentance. Okay. So in case you have trouble finding it. Well, which is the one on repentance? The one called repentance. Okay, so own it, repent, learn from the wow, that was a long time ago. I can't remember when I did the repentance one. That's a while ago. Okay, own it, repent, learn from the experience. That's where you take it, you put it in the back of your mind somewhere where it needs to be, where it's safe, but it's still useful, and then you got to release. That's the hardest part for most of you. Letting it go. Move forward. Let it go. Okay? You got to let it go. Now we're going to talk about the other side of this. You've got to stop owning what was done to you. All right? Stop owning what was done to you. Forgive them. Oh, but they're never going to... Don't worry about what they do. Listen to the forgiveness teaching. Another one, hard to find, it's called forgiveness. Okay. You need to forgive for you, not for them. That doesn't mean you actually have to go find them and say, I'm sorry. Some of the people you would need to forgive, you may never see again in your life anyway. You got to forgive them. Forgiving them is an internal thing in you where you no longer are angered, upset, and hurt by them. You said, I forgive you. Like, look, can you agree with this thing that Yeshua said in all the people in your life that have hurt you? Forgive them, Father. They didn't know what they were doing. Because if they did, they wouldn't have done it. If they truly understood the damage they were doing to you, they wouldn't have done it. But they didn't. They were just continuing probably an abuse that happened to them and abuses that they witnessed, etc. If they truly understood what they were doing, they wouldn't have done it to you. Forgive them, Father. They didn't know what they were doing. That doesn't minimize how awful it was, but you have to find a way to let it go. So you got to forgive them. So when people say, do you forgive me? I say, of course I forgive you. But the problem is they're thinking that forgiveness means restoration of a relationship. That doesn't always happen. Some relationships are permanently damaged. Let's say you were married. Your spouse cheats on you. You can forgive them. You need to forgive them. Doesn't mean you're going to stay married to them. That's a breach of trust that scripturally says you can get divorced. Actually, there's the putting away and there's other damages and stoning and things that happen for adultery. Big deal. All right? And by the way, I even get phone calls from people that will tell me, and if you're the person listening right now, nobody knows that I spoke to you, okay? But I get phone calls from people that their spouse did cheat on them, and they're still not sure that they can get a divorce. I'm like, what? Yes, it's an option for you. You don't have to if your spouse cheats. You certainly can. But this is a person who's wondering about the divorce issues. They said, look, there are a lot of people that want to argue about divorce issues. There's one thing that's not an argument with anybody. If your spouse cheats, you've got the grounds for divorce or putting away or any of that stuff. All options are there on the table. All right? Stop owning what was done to you. Forgive them, learn from the experience, release and move forward. Okay? Stop giving the past, now we're going to get a little bit into this. Stop giving the past control over your present and your future. I said that before, but this is the biggest problem that you have. You are still letting the past define your future. Tony Robbins, one of the greatest, motivational guys out there, he's always telling people the past doesn't equal the future. I'm sure a lot of other people have said it, but he's the one I heard say it, okay? But you need to own that. The past only equals the future if you let it. There's no reason for the past to equal the future unless you let it. Now, of course, if the past was good, you can let the good stuff move forward into the future. If it was bad, you can change that. The past does not have to equal the future, okay? So stop giving the past control over your present and future. Negative experiences in your life, I said this already, but I'll say it again, should only be lived once. Stop reliving them. Stop reliving them. You know, I'll give you an example about how that could look. I'm counseling a couple. Actually, this happens on almost all of my couples counseling. So all you couples, don't think I'm talking about you. This happens in like every counseling. Where at some point, if I'm counseling them more than once, and I've given them some things, and things are maybe getting a little better, something will happen which is just like it used to be. And one or both spouses will say to me, see, nothing's changed. I'll say, hold on, time out, it's different. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. I said, no, it's different, and I can prove it. The last time over these, they married 20 years, you married 10 years, whatever it is, the last time over all those years that these things have happened, was I there? No. Did you have anybody helping you with it? No. Well, now it's different because it happened and you got to come to me. By definition, it makes it different. Now, that doesn't mean that it's definitely going to be a different result, but it is different. So now what we have to acknowledge is that it feels the same. It appears similar. It seems like it's the deal, nothing's changed. But if you now have someone you can go to that both of you are submitted to and both of you trust, that gives that person an opportunity to get the situation to finally start to head in a changed direction. Because A, I can get you to listen to each other, and not only listen to each other, but hear each other accurately, because that's a big problem. Spouses don't really always communicate very well. And so I will make sure that when someone speaks, that the other one actually heard it and can parrot back and say, yes, did you understand what she said? Yes, did you understand did you hear that, what he said? Are you hearing? Well, you didn't have that before. And then you'll also have me to listen to. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Are you hearing the counsel I'm giving you? Are you willing to give it a chance and try it? That's by definition different. Okay? So not only are the negative experiences in your life not to be lived more than once, but also if you can involve counsel and help, by definition that makes it different, which means the potential for a changed result or a different result ultimately is increased. That doesn't mean it's a guarantee of it. Just because I'm involved doesn't fix anything. I can give you all the advice in the world. You do none of it, it's not going to change a thing. Had a lady used to call us, and it had nothing to do with Torah or anything. It had to do with a family problem. But she would call us, and myself and another administrator, we were answering the phones, and she would call us on midnight, and we talked for hours, counsel. After over a year, I stopped in the conversation. I just finally got to my limit because I knew she wasn't doing any of what I said. I said, why do you keep calling me? She goes, what do you mean? I said, you're not doing anything that I've ever told you to do. I said, I've been counseling for a year. And in the conversation, it's very clear you've done nothing. I said, stop calling me. She was like, I got all offended. I said, no, look, if you're going to do what I say, and this is Deuteronomy 17, right? That's fine. But by the way, I said to her, I don't care if you don't do what I say. This isn't a control thing, but you're wasting my time. You're going to keep calling me. If you're not going to do anything I tell you to do. If I give you recommendations and counsel, I'm not saying that I tell you to, it's a counsel thing again. She took none of the advice. And then keeps whining to me why nothing's working. You're not doing anything I'm telling you to do. I give you advice, you don't do it. So bother somebody else. Oh, did she stir it up in the congregation that was affiliated with us and attack me and say what an awful mean person I was and everything else? But see, they didn't know she'd been calling for a year the way she told the story. They didn't know that we took her calls at midnight. We took her calls anytime. And this was about family nonsense that was going on between siblings over an inheritance or some other nonsense. And I kept saying, talk to the lawyers, this, do that. I mean, we kept giving the right counsel, do this, because we knew a little bit about this as far as guiding her to the right. I said, did you do what I told you last time? No. Every time I said, did you do what I said? No. So why do you keep calling me? Again, I don't care if you don't do what I say, but then why do you keep calling if you're not going to do it? I'm not here to give you an opinion poll. I'm also not here for you to gripe about the misery in your life and then you're not going to take any counsel. Go gripe to somebody else. I'm too busy. Now, when I say I'm too busy, I'm not too busy for you to gripe, as long as you're willing to listen too. And let me try to help you. But if you're going to just gripe for griping's sake, forget it. Go do it. Go whine to somebody else. I've got more people that could actually get help than sitting there wasting that time. Does it make sense? Is that fair? All right. All right, but we've got to stop letting the negative experiences in our lives be lived more than once. You can't. There's no reason to live these things more than once. Okay, just got to let that go. The journey simplified. What's next on my next paper? Oh, cool. Perfect. All right, the journey simplified. So our battle, our struggle ultimately is with and against, you ready for this? I know this is going to shock you, fear and doubt. Okay? Because those negative experiences have created fear and doubt in different aspects of your life, in your relationships, etc. You're acting and responding out of fear, out of doubt. That's where the insecurities come from, and the pain, and the rejection issues, the depression issues, all that. It's all coming out of fear and doubt. Now, these are things that help create that fear and doubt. What I'm saying is that it's all ultimately a battle with fear and doubt. Okay, this is what steals the shalom from you and those around you. Because some of you don't even realize how contagious, or I shouldn't say that so much. Okay, so you know how sometimes the deodorant doesn't work quite as good, and somebody maybe within a foot or two of you might sense that you need some more. But there's other times where people might smell it across the room. Some of you are so toxic with your stuff, you're affecting people just like that smell might affect people. You know what I'm saying? You're bringing that presence in, maybe when it's just a little bit, only if someone's really close to you and you're talking, they may sense that you're having these psychological, emotional, whatever it is, these trauma issues. But some of you are so toxic, it actually brings the whole room a sense of feeling it. Okay? These challenges you have, and then it's overspilling. Because you're so afraid and so much doubt, and the next thing you know, you're helping to trigger that. This is why it is so important to find a structural setup, a situation where you can let go of all that and find yourself safe and trusting. Well, that's scary, Rabbi. Oh, yeah, it is. I know it. But it's the only solution. It's the only solution. I don't know why you think there's anything else. You want to find it in Messiah Yeshua. You want to find it in the Father, but it's very hard to find it in the invisible when you need a hug. Okay, you need someone to talk to you and soothe you because you don't hear his voice like that. Oh, yeah, you can read his voice in the Word, etc., and hopefully find a verse that comforts you. It's not the same thing as looking somebody in the eye and telling them and hearing them tell you it's going to be okay. You're safe. I've got you. You're in the right place. We have a bunch of people here that can tell you that they made that journey and it's had a tremendous effect. That doesn't mean that it's perfect. It just means that they are safe and that they are getting the encouragement because they're still dealing with everybody in the system is still a flawed human being. Okay? But the system can be done well and the system's not flawed. Because people say, well, that whole vertical thing's no good. No, it's just been done badly by human beings. The structure is perfect. How do I know? Because he put it in place. The one who was perfect put it in place. It's in his word. Yeah, but I've always experienced it well, yeah, you had bad experiences. Abusive leadership, neglectful leadership. Abusive could be them trying to dominate, control, and micromanage your life. It also could be ignoring you and neglecting you and giving you nothing. And everything in between. You've had these horrible negative experiences. But yet, it is the right structure. And so you can allow Hasatan to help convince you that the structure is the fault, or you can accept the truth and the reality that the people implementing it were the problem, not the system. But yet we have teaching after teaching out there on the internet. I won't name different groups that you can find them, that it's saying, oh, no, the structure is the problem. It was never supposed to be vertical. God's model is an abundance of elders just sitting around singing Kumbaya or something like that. I don't know. Okay? If you've ever been to a church or a congregation led by a group, you already know that doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't work. Groupthink doesn't work. Nothing gets done. It never goes anywhere. It stagnates. It's like the whole group is sitting on the mouse wheel, just going around and around and around. Or it just ends up being dominated by one controlling person and they take it in whatever direction they want to go. What you have to understand is that without vision, the people are let loose. It says perish, but I think the word better translates they're let loose. Without leadership, the people just they'll just let loose. But the vision is not given to the people. The vision is given to the leader. The people are inspired to find the leader and get in there behind the leader. Moses had the vision, not everybody. Then Moses shared that vision with the leadership, and they shared it with everybody. You got to find a leader who has the vision. And then trust that Abba has chosen that anointed and has chosen and anointed and appointed that person for that position. So get in there hopeful and trusting and see. Look, you're grown-ups. If anything really looks abusive, you'll stop and you'll go and you'll figure it out. How terrible can it be if you're on your guard? But you're going to have to give it a chance. Well, how did I know? Well, how about if I'm the leader, how about calling me, spend some time? When you're here, schedule. Some people are smart enough to put themselves on the schedule for the counseling just to meet me. I wanted 20 minutes with you, so I got on the schedule. I didn't have an issue to counsel about, but I wanted to just to get to know you other than the scary, crazy guy behind the microphone. Because some of you are like, man, the way he blasts with that microphone, I don't know if I want to talk to him. I have an appropriate level of intensity appropriate to the situation when I talk to you. Okay? Now, some of you might need a little bit of intensity because there's so much noise in your head, I got to push through all that stuff just to get you to hear anything. So sometimes if I get intense, realize I'm simply trying to push through the noise in your head that's screaming and panicking at everything that's happening. And some of you should be able to own that, acknowledge that you have that problem. You got a lot of noise in there. Oh no, this is no good. I'm afraid he's going to do something. I acknowledge that stuff is real. But you got to acknowledge it's real too so you can deal with it. Remember, this is what steals shalom from you. Ultimately, the goal of Yah is that the whole universe be in a state called shalom. I think that may be one way. I don't think I've ever said that before, but I think that might be a reasonable thing to say. The state of shalom, of peace. Okay? The Jewish community puts an incredible value on what they call shalom bayit, shalom in the home. Some of you thinking, it's not been in my home. My home is tohu v'bohu. Okay? Chaos and confusion. Or my home has got anger in it and bitterness in it and all this other stuff going on in it all the time. It's an negative emotional soup flowing all over, actually I shouldn't say soup, more like a tornado just flying around in the house of emotional negative stuff flying everywhere. But see, everything should be eventually shalom. And the thing is, shalom can't be where there's fear and doubt. You can't have peace where there's fear and doubt. So if we're ultimately looking to have shalom in all areas of our life, we're going to have to really deal with this fear issue. Keep listening to that fear of Yahweh teaching till it starts to sink in. I mean, the point of the teaching was if you could fear Yahweh properly, you'll stop being afraid of anything else. You won't be afraid of anything. But you need human beings to bring some of that security and that comfort. You need to be able to see that it can be done because what you see in the visible helps you have strength on which is in the invisible. We're told in Scripture, how can you love your father you can't see when you can't love your brother you can see? Because if you can do the one, you can do the other. If you can't do the one, you can't do the other. And so, and by the way, if you wonder about me, am I a safe person, all that stuff, you ever see me around the children? Children know. Little children, they have a sense, okay? And you watch them come running and grabbing on me and what they do. I don't do anything to bring that on. That's just what they do. Do you trust that the children have an instinct for that or not? Because they do. Oh, but children get abused. Yeah, but they're not seeking that out. They're looking to escape. They're afraid of those people, and they get swept up by them. If you were a child who was abused, you know what I'm talking about. You were afraid of your abusers. You weren't running over and just giving them hugs. You were like running and hiding in the corner to try and get away from them. Okay, children know. Or talk to some of the other people who have gone through that process. I want to keep you safe. I want to create an environment, not just me personally, but create an environment where you are safe. Okay? Well, that's really important. Okay. Let's see. So not only does it steal shalom, but this is what destroys all our relationships, including your relationship with Yahweh. Okay, your fear and your doubt is what destroys all relationships. I mean, I've had to tell some people that are married, I said, look, let me rephrase that. I've had to tell people that were married who are saying things like, well, what if he doesn't? And what if this happens? Or what if she does this? Or what if he does that? I said, look, you're either going to give this a chance or it's doomed. And the only way to give it a chance is you got to stop freaking out and having fear and doubt. Because now you might as well get divorced. Well, what if this happens and we get divorced? Well, right now you're headed for it anyway. What do you got to lose? Do you want to be in or do you don't want to be in? Okay. I'm going to use an analogy. It may work for some of you, may not. Okay. In my youth, I played cards. I played poker. Anybody know how to play poker? You know what I'm talking about? Marriage is like the game of poker from the point of the idea of being all in. Okay? When you shove it all on the table, you're fully committed. You don't know if you're going to win or lose. You think you got the winning hand. You think it's going to work out, but you pushed it all in. You get married, you got to be all in. Okay? So even when you're having a bad marriage situation, but you're going to get counsel, why would you waste your time with counsel if you're not willing to really do anything about it? Well, because my husband made me or my wife made me, go ahead and get the counsel. No, don't do that. If you don't want it, then don't do it. You have to want it. Because marriage is impossible without wanting it. You can't do it by force. It only goes so far. You both have to want it. And then you have to prove to each other that you want it. But you got to be all in. If you're going to try something, you can't just try it and say, I'm just give it a little try. No, you got to be all in. You got to push all the chips in. You know? If you're only going to be part way in, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're out already. You can't do that. So hopefully that made some sense. It's not about my poker analogy, but anyway. In my misspent youth. And I was good. So now nobody's going to play with me if I want to play again. All right. But you know why I was good? I was good because I wasn't afraid. All the other guys, if I knew they were afraid, I could intimidate them, I could scare them in the game. They couldn't do that to me. I didn't have any fear. Oh, I'm sorry, I operate my life out of fear. Okay. That was told to me once. It just cracks me and Manny up. Anyway, that's our inside joke. But they couldn't beat me through fear. If I lost, I lost. I didn't care. I only brought money, like I told you about in other things. I only brought money if I lost it. Just like when you lend to somebody, we talked about this morning, you should be only lending knowing that if you never get it back, it's okay. It won't wreck your life. I only played with money that if I lost it, it wouldn't wreck my life. So, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? Sometimes you get rained out. Okay. Let's see. Our pursuit, because of this fear and doubt struggle, our pursuit should ultimately be for emunah. What's emunah? It's the Hebrew word for faith, for trust, for belief. I mean, I know the actual word for trust would be bitachon, but it's all wrapped up into this one idea of emunah, okay? Where you fully can relax and know that our Heavenly Father has it all under control. We just have to do our part the best we can. We have to make our effort, but He's got it under control, okay? So this is what will bring shalom to your life and those around you. This is the foundation of all proper relationships, especially with Yahweh. Okay? The real issue that will determine your success in this journey, you want to know what that is? It's going to be your level of commitment and any limitations that you place on the price that you are willing to pay to get there. All right? The real issue that's going to determine your success in this journey is your level of commitment and anything that might be limiting any limitations that you will place on the price you're willing to pay. That's like I said, if you're not going to put it all in, only some of it, and now you've limited the possibility of success. A marriage can only be successful if you're all in. Period. You cannot be partially in to make it work. Now, you may feel like you're partially withdrawing, which is why it's falling apart. See, divorce happens when one or both start pulling their chips off the table, so to speak. They're not all in anymore. The only way a marriage can work is you got to be all in. Okay? Well, the same thing here. Are there any limitations that you have placed on the price you're willing to pay? There's a cost. You got to count the cost. See, a lot of you, no, all of you, I'm sure, got married without really thinking at all about the cost. You just knew what you wanted. I want him. I want her. Maybe you didn't even think, I want him, I want her. Maybe you wanted what you thought that would get you. I want children, or I want a house. So some of you didn't even marry for even those right reasons. I want him, I want her. There was other stuff going on. But what price limitations have you put on yourself? Are you not willing to pay the full price for all this? Are you getting, are you limiting any of that? Now, I've got about 30 minutes left. I don't want to touch the next section until until the next class. So I think that I covered just exactly the amount of material I want to do for today. Does anybody want to ask questions? If you do, you can come up in the front row. I could let a few questions come up. Maybe we can do a little bit of that. If there's anybody online that wants to ask a question or anything. Otherwise we can end it early here, which is fine. After all, we got to reset the room a little bit and have dance class in about half an hour. You're all stunned like, no. Okay, wait, Janet's coming up, much to my surprise. I hope she doesn't get mad at me for teasing her relentlessly. Okay. No, I like that. She has questions and she's willing to ask,
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, so when you said that you were inspired to say the Father wanted us to be in a state of perfect shalom. So all what you have...
Oh, okay, hold on. First, what verse was that? Okay. No, I didn't say perfect shalom. I just said he wants us to be in shalom.
In shalom. Maybe that was my addition. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Because I don't think we're ever going to achieve perfect shalom, but he does want us to strive for shalom in our lives.
Yes.
And what steals the shalom is any part of the fear and the doubt. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So initially when you were talking about the process, how we have to identify the areas of struggle, the cause and our role, believe there's a solution, all the process that you show us at the beginning, will that help us to achieve that shalom then in areas in our lives?
Some of the things I gave you were just to prod your thinking about it, which you need to have first, so you have those awarenesses and the acknowledgments that you need to have that will lead to eventually the shalom. And then eventually, as we start to unravel what's causing, what the sources are and everything else, then eventually we'll start talking about the solutions, okay? Right now we're just identifying the causality and what we need to have happen. We need shalom, how do we get there? We need emunah, how do we get there? We've got fear and doubt, how do we deal with it? We've got all these struggles. We talked about being in control or being controlled or out of control. What's that all about? We'll talk about that on Sunday, okay, at the next session. So, yeah, we're going to get to that. This was just to help us understand the problem, okay, because we know there's a problem, but maybe we don't quite understand the problem. And the problem has all of these areas and aspects to it. The idea that we need to understand that we're still letting areas of our life be ruled by things that have happened in our past, but it was a long time ago. Why is it still controlling our present? I didn't say that it's a memory that doesn't keep coming up every now and then, but why is it controlling our present? In other words, why is it limiting your forward movement, limiting your options, limiting your choices? Okay? It's kind of like, even on a more benign note, let's say that you had a loved one, like a parent, pass away. Okay? Maybe even surprisingly young or something like that. You'll always have that memory. It'll become less and less traumatic over the time. And you'll have your moments where you'll remember it. It'll make you sad for a few minutes. But it shouldn't limit the choices in your life. Well, same thing with anything else that's traumatic. Any trauma, whether it's a really awful, horrendous thing done to you, because guess what? I know a lot of people that losing a parent at a young age was incredibly horrific and traumatic. But it's not like something was abusively done to you. But that trauma can really affect people in different ways and have longer or less long-lasting effects based on how they allow it to control their lives, okay? I mean, there are some people that when they lose their spouse, the average person does not live a whole lot longer than their spouse. Once the spouse goes, the other one tends to go because they have not figured out how to deal with the trauma, how to be now in a different status losing their spouse. I mean, most of those situations happen in just a few years. One goes and the other one goes. I mean, you do see more people also around that live long, but a lot of it happens very quickly. Because this is, again, a trauma that totally disabled their going forward. They were thinking, now what am I here for? it was all wrapped up in my life and my spouse, and now what? And so we're just starting the journey, Janet. Good question. And, because sometimes you got to really spend a good amount of time laying the foundation of where we're going. Okay, James.
Yeah, I wanted to share something about being told that stop acting like a victim. That's something I was told my entire life. And yeah, they were right, but no one explained to me what that meant. And it pretty much means is you're expecting something bad to happen and you're reacting prior to the action that you're expecting. And when you stop thinking that everything's going to go bad, start thinking positively and planning for the positive, people start responding differently to you. Good,
excellent. Okay, so part of the idea of being the victim was explained by James. I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but I think that's very good. A lot of times with the victim mentality, people are expecting and will preemptively strike expecting it, okay, that this is what's going to happen, so I might as well, preemptively handle it that way. A lot of you who've had rejection issues, what you'll do is you'll push people away, expecting them to reject you anyway, but you'd rather just push them away before they reject you. It's kind of that kind of thing. But also victim mentality includes also expecting people to take care of you or provide for you because after all, look at me, I'm a victim, I've had this horrible thing, people need to take care of me. So it can go in all of those directions. Norma?
Thank you. I don't even know how to elaborate the question, but because a lot of words are coming to my mind, like realization of the point where we are in life, realization of a creator, willingness to accept what he expects from us, what he has for us, and realization of in what point of my life I am. And does all the things have anything to do with the call of the Father to us? Because in my personal experience, I feel that I became in the realization of who I was and all the mistakes that I made in my life when I thought that I was doing right things. They came when I became under the call. Then is when I woke up who I really was and where I was going. That's my personal experience. I don't know if this all realization has anything to do with the call.
Yeah, no, it does. Okay, so what happened in your life is that, and basically a lot of what we just talked about, is being awakened to reality. And that means that you had, I call it a delusion bubble. This bubble you walked around in, which included your understanding of the world. I mean, how life is, how people are, how relationships are supposed to be. You had all of these things in your head understood a certain way, and that created this bubble that you lived in that was your sense of reality. Well, to call you, he had to basically pop that bubble. So in popping that bubble, you now started to see things that you never saw, okay? Because you now have a new clarity on what reality is. And so, yeah, all of these things coming out of that moment makes sense, okay? All right, Santi?
I have some comment on repressing our pain, our trauma, and to the point that those untreated feelings of fear or bitterness can be manifest through our physical symptoms. We call it psychosomatic disorders.
Yes.
That,
Okay.
would cause a lot of physical sicknesses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Another thing is that it's good that Rabbi point out if we find that we cannot handle the hurts, the guilt, we can go to a spiritual leader for help. And if they refer you or suggest you to seek professional help, and we have to be careful whom we are going to seek help from. Some of the psychologists or counselor, they may have different faith background, then we have to be careful. But if we meet someone who's very sound in the Bible, then we can integrate the biblical principle in the counseling process, and so that we can get help.
All right, thank you, Santi. All right, so so what she was trying to say was that a lot of our negative emotional things that we are holding on to can end up manifesting in the physical. In other words, your health can be affected by, we call that stress-related stuff, or because these things are stressors on your system. Not that it's actually what we call stress, but a negative emotional state will stress your system, even if you don't necessarily feel stressed. Maybe you're feeling depressed or angry or some other thing. It's not stress, but it does stress the system. Okay? So that's very important, and that's good. And also, I've got mixed feelings about when you go to professional help as far as it needing to be a biblical person or that person. A lot of what they're going to do is because it has how psycho-emotional stuff works. I would stay away from someone that's going to be doing a deliverance ministry, or they're going to be doing it all Christian-based. But, a lot of it doesn't require somebody to quote Bible verses or Bible things at you to work on the, your pain and your hurt and your trauma. What you need to do is find someone who's got an expertise at that particular type of pain or trauma and help you deal with that, okay? But, be careful. There's a lot of people out there that, again, when you're dealing with those kind of things, could help or could make things worse. It's not always easy to know which is which. Because I can tell you this, I know a lot of people that have gone into that field, and some of them need more help than they're helping. Okay? Because some of them, not all, but some of them end up in their field because they're so messed up they want to understand it, and then they study it out, but yet they're not applying it themselves necessarily. So I've seen quite a lot of very messed up therapists. So you got to be very careful with that. Okay, the mic has already gone to the live stream desk, Santi. Okay, let her have it one more second.
I totally agree with Rabbi. Yes, not many professionals, they are skilled. Ask Father to provide us the right thing. So discernment is important. Okay. We can even counter-check with our spiritual leader.
Yep.
Is this the right person for me to receive help from? And also, only if you see the professional, if that is a Christian counselor, only use Bible, read with you prayer, and you still have to deal with those untreated things. So we need a biblical base, very skilled in clinical aspect, and so that we can get healed. Okay.
Give it back to him. All right. And again, the reason now this is where she kind of her expertise tends to be and why she's it's passionate for her. But understand that the Bible only has a limited amount to say about psychological trauma and dealing with it. I mean, we have to infer a bunch of stuff, and there's a lot of things that we have to do with that. If it helps, you could always see if it's okay with the counselor if someone like me went with you. I mean, I could go with you if you don't mind talking in front of me, and I can be able to help you evaluate. I've been to some sessions with other people where I had to tell them, you're wasting your money. This person is doing nothing for you, okay? And so, I mean, I've seen that. I've seen a counselor that basically is just saying, okay, start. And they're only just counting their dollars go in their pocket for the 30 minutes or whatever they're doing. They're not actually doing anything to help, okay? And so that's I've seen that. I've been to those sessions with somebody that was, dealing with some real psycho-emotional problems. Okay, live stream.
From Melissa Blackburn, says, you mentioned becoming a trusted advisor to our teens. How do we do that with a prodigal or a wayward child, one abandoning the faith?
Okay, forget about the faith. That has nothing to do with what I said, okay? It has to do with the fact that that's your child and you're the parent. And so you need to be able to sit with them, and if it's already been hurt or damaged or destroyed, you're going to have to work to get it back. But you have to rebuild that relationship where that child knows that you love them more than anybody ever could or would, and that you will be there always. And that, look, doesn't mean you're always going to be just wonderful and not fighting and not having any issues, okay? But you love them, and that you're going to always be there somehow to work things out, but you want to maintain that conversation. Now, if that conversation has already been damaged, it's going to take an effort to work it back. You're going to have to prove to them who already, there's already been breaches of trust as far as they're concerned with you, or they don't, for whatever reason, they don't trust you, they don't want to share with you, because after all, if your child has shared with you, and you have come over the top on them a few times, they're going to be less interested to do it again. Once bitten, twice shy type of thing. You're just not going to keep doing it, all right? And so you have to be able to say, look, I'm sorry. When you lose it, you have to apologize. It doesn't matter if they were wrong, whatever crazy thing they were doing. You have to apologize for losing it, popping your cork, and then you have to go ahead and fix that enough to restart the conversation. And it's hard. Okay, if you and your child are really at total opposite ends on some stuff, that's going to be hard. But is it going to be any easier if you completely lose them? And there's no conversation? And so that's the journey. Okay? But it has nothing to do, look, I'm going to tell all of you this. I told the teenagers, I think I told some parents, very few of your teenagers are called yet. Very few of them have had their poking and their eyes opened. Very few of you had it done when you were a teenager. It happened to me until I was in my 20s. You don't know when he's going to do it. And so don't just assume because it's your kid that the bubble's been popped and they know it. They're just like all the rest of us. And they're also in that very strange place of trying to figure out life, the world, and all those things themselves. And so they don't want to just believe this stuff because you do. And so let's not bring the faith thing into this equation. This equation is about a relationship with your child. And you find a way to get there through using the normal skill sets that build relationships. Showing and demonstrating your love, your caring, and your ability to listen. I mean, listen without judging. Listen without exploding. Listen without, you know what I'm saying? And I'm terrible at this at times. You can ask my son in the back. I'm terrible at this sometimes. But that's my boy, okay? You know, it doesn't hurt to have something that you do where the two of you know that it reminds you, hey, we've made a commitment. I'm going to be your counselor and you're going to be my kid and we're going to have a relationship that goes forever. Just have like a little something, okay? And so you know it and your kid knows it, that when you do that one something, whatever it is, okay? I don't care if it's a high five or if it's just something that when you do it, you know, that reminds you, okay, that means that we're good. That means that I remember our relationship is supposed to go and go forward. Okay? I find that helps too. All right, next question.
From Justin Rodriguez, it says, I've done some horrible things in my life and found forgiveness through Yeshua. My question is, how do you deal with people that continue to bring up those past regrets as that it is who you are? And Anna C., as kind of similar, is how does one deal with envy and slander?
All right, those are two, I guess, separate questions that I guess have some similarity to them. Okay, so hopefully I'm understanding the question right. If you're dealing with somebody who keeps bringing up past stuff, okay, I would recommend that you recommend to them as gently and consistently as you can. I think you need to find someone to talk to about that stuff. I mean, I know you want to talk to me about this stuff. I'm not qualified to deal with that stuff. Tell them just say, I'm not qualified for that. You need to go find somebody who's qualified to help you work this stuff through. I mean, you bring it up a lot, which means that it's important to you. It's a trauma that you're still dealing with. You probably should find somebody who knows what they're doing, who can help you through that thing. And don't say like, you're all messed up. You need to go talk to somebody. But as gently as you can, say, look, I appreciate that this, you feel like that you have to kind of talk about it, because you do. You need to talk this stuff out. So people go to therapists so they can talk it out. But it's got to be somebody who knows what to do with what you're saying and help you walk through it. Okay, as far as the slander and envy and all that other stuff, this is a different part of the conversation, but I guess I'll go there real quickly. You got to stop caring what everybody thinks. Stop owning what other people do. Well, they're saying bad things about me. So what? They said bad things about Yeshua, bad things about every apostle, bad things about everybody. Why does that bother you? You know what? What only should bother you is the people that are close to you that you know love them. That means that you know love you, that these are people that love you, what they say. Why do you care what other people say? People attacking me all the time. I don't care. It bothers my wife because she's more sensitive to that stuff and that she's protective of me, and I understand that, right? But you got to get to that place where it's like, I do what I do because I do the best I can. If I know I did the best I can, why should it bother me that some people don't get it and they want to attack it? As a matter of fact, I've been told that if nobody's attacking you, you're not doing anything. That's one of the things you get from the motivational teachers. If there's nobody out there attacking you, you must not be doing anything. Because when you do stuff, part of what it does is it exposes that you're willing to do something that the people that are attacking you are unwilling to do, and you're about to step out of their part of the murk and the mud, and they don't want you to be. Misery loves company. They don't want you to find peace and happiness and shalom. Then you're not part of the pity party group. They got to slander you and attack you. How dare you want to step out of this murk and mud and junk and yuck? Elevate yourself into someplace else. It's not that you're elevating yourself like in a pride ego way. You want to come out of the junk. You want to climb out of the sewer and get out into up on the ground and where the air is clean and everything's clean. You can breathe and function. So don't own that stuff. You know what? I hate to say it from a little dumb thing we all learned as kids. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can't hurt me. So we say that, but it's such a simple truth. Why do words hurt you? You know why they hurt you? Because you still have too much of you involved. The pride and the ego and the thing that can be hurt by words. Don't get me wrong. I like when people like what I do. I like when people are blessed by what I like hearing affirmations. Remember, words of affirmation is like my second love language. Okay? But as much as I like words of affirmations, I'm not going to let the opposite side of it tear me down and destroy me. Because trust me, I get kicked at least as hard as I get complimented. And almost as often, or maybe twice as often sometimes. Because some people I know, like, well, I don't want to say anything about that. I don't want to make his head big. That's okay. People are kicking it all the time. Don't worry about it. Maintains the size. Compliment, kick. Compliment, kick. All right. But you have to get to the place where you don't have to receive what's thrown at you. Okay? Some of you have had this experience as a kid. Some kid doesn't really want to play. You're playing with a ball. So you throw the kid the ball, and the kid still stands there with their hands in their pockets. The ball hits the kid and just bounces off. Anybody have that? You know what I'm talking about? So you threw the ball, but the kid didn't receive it. Why do you receive what they throw at you? But other people are receiving it. So what? You care too much about what other people think. Why do you care about what other people think? If I cared about what everybody thought, you wouldn't get half the teachings you've gotten. Especially beware false prophets. You'd never have heard that teaching. Do you understand? So why do you care what other people think? All right, next question, because we're actually got about 5 minutes left.
I have one last one, Rabbi. I think you did a wonderful job with when you were describing broken people, and when you started talking about abuse and how that is so prevalent, especially for women. So I've always thought about any type of addictions, including pornography, to be a coping mechanism to deal with the junk that you have inside. But I kind of see it as something that maybe you were exposing them when you were young, But also in a marriage, in a marriage covenant, if that happens, do you consider that as adultery? Because to me, what I've seen is that it's very, very traumatic when it happens, and it has to be dealt. So would you consider that as a part of, as a category under the sexual abuse?
Okay,
No?
so you're asking about the pornography?
Yes.
Okay. This is a really, it's a big problem that I don't think we're handling very well, okay? And I think a lot of it is perception, all right? And some of you are going to completely agree, and some of you are going to be all mad at me in a minute. And you know how much I care about that, so I'm going to go forward. Pornography, I mean, it's almost like the taboo. It's so taboo you don't even talk about it. We could talk about drug addiction, we could talk about alcohol, but we can't talk about pornography. They're all the same. They are escapes, okay? And ladies, I know that for a lot of you, this is incredibly traumatic, but it's only traumatic because of where you are and your culture and your understanding. Would it be more traumatic if you found out your husband was an alcoholic? Would it be more traumatic if you found out he was doing drugs? Would it be more traumatic if you found out he had a gambling addiction? And if your answer is no, it wouldn't be more, that the most traumatic thing would be pornography, then it's your perception problem. And I'll tell you why. Because you're thinking that the pornography has a rejection of you. It's not a rejection of you. It has nothing to do with you. Okay? It's simply that it's a escape of choice. As a matter of fact, often, and I tried to study this out enough for me to understand because this is such a problem. And how do you deal with people with this problem? And I do have men coming to me telling me they're struggling with this. And ladies, don't try to figure out if it's your husband's, okay? I mean, we have to understand, in the real world, every guy is exposed to this. Now, you don't tell me you're the one guy that's not, that's fine. Maybe there's one. But you're all exposed to it. The system is built to make it as accessible as possible. You don't have to walk to the store, go in and buy something, have it put in a brown bag and sneak it into a room anywhere. It's like on your phone if you want. It's on your tablet if you want. It's on the cable if you want. I mean, it's easily accessible by everybody 24/7. And if you've got teenage boys, they found it, trust me. And now you're all like, oh, I'm going to find the device and I'm going to freak out. No, you have to find a way to repackage it and teach them to appropriately understand why that's not something they should be doing. What the negative aspects of it, because it's got huge negative aspects like all addictive type of things, just like alcohol or drugs or any other gambling. Any addiction will eventually be destructive to your life. And they need to understand what the destructive aspect of that is. But don't treat it in your mind like somehow this is different than the other ones. It's not. Okay, and that's part of the hard part, though, because our society and culture, at least here in America, sees it that way. All right? But look, you could go to Europe and see women naked walking on the beaches all the time, and you know what? The Europeans don't think half and nothing about it. So it's not about the naked form necessarily. As a matter of fact, we've turned it into this problem. Okay? We've made it that problem because we're so whatever in our thinking about the body. So we've turned it into the taboo secret thing or whatever. The more we make it that way, the more people want stuff. I joked back in college. I said, you know what? If all the women in America went topless and just started being topless, after about a couple of months, nobody would care. It would be a big deal for 5 minutes because it's different. And how do I know this? Because in Europe they do it all the time and nobody cares. I'm not promoting this. Don't get me wrong. Okay? I've seen a few naked bodies. They're not always pretty. I think clothing is a good idea. And I'm speaking for myself. Okay. All right? But I'm just trying to tell you that we have views because of who and where we are. All right? Adam and Chava were naked. And that was never a problem until it became a problem. It became a psycho-emotional thing where they started to see it as shameful. Why would we think the body that Yahweh gave us is shameful? We've turned it into this stuff. You can find societies out in the middle of like jungle somewhere that don't wear any clothes and nobody thinks it's anything. We've done this, okay? Now, the reason it becomes trauma is because women perceive that it's a rejection of them, that I'm now older and my body's not like it was, and he prefers the perfect, airbrushed models that they put in these movies or whatever he's looking at. I don't know what he's looking at, okay? And he doesn't want me. That's probably not true. I've talked to a lot of men. That's almost never true. Matter of fact, I've never talked to one where that was true. Okay? They love their wives. It has nothing to do with that. It's an escape. I don't think it's a good escape. It's an escape, just like drugs and all the other horrible escapes. Are we following me so far? Okay, so ladies, please understand. All of your men have struggled with this, all of them. Don't ask them, don't put them on the spot, because it's a struggle. They know, they feel guilty, they tear themselves up, they beat themselves up about it. They're not, it's a struggle like any other addiction. And it's massively more available and cheaper because it's free all the time everywhere. I know you can get it from what people tell me everywhere. Not like drugs, which is expensive, or gambling, which you lose all your money. This one doesn't cost them a bunch of money. And so it's much more addictive and available. But what needs to be happening is to understand what's underlying. What are they escaping? Why are they escaping? Just like with anything else. They're running into a fantasy world to escape something in their reality. Ladies, you want to fix the problem? I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you think you look like. You're the problem, by the way, in how you think about your body, not the way he thinks about it. Believe me, no matter what, he thinks your tractor's sexy. You know that song too? I quoted a country song. Manny's impressed now, because I hate country music. Okay. But you don't think so you don't think he likes you. So you start getting older, you start whatever, okay? And you get the furniture disease where your chest falls into your drawers, okay? It's a guy's problem too, okay? And I got 8 hours of sleep. Okay, but that's not the problem here. Ladies, he wants you. He married you. Give him more of you. Oh, but I'm so embarrassed. That's in your head. Has he really rejected you? Think about it. Or have you started pushing him off because you don't feel good about you? He wants to look at something, give him you to look at. Why would he want to look at me? He does. I promise you, I talk to these men. They want their wives. Okay? You just don't want to give yourself to them the same way you used to and display yourself and show whatever you did when you were younger. And so they, I'm not saying it's your fault. It's just they could have gone into some other escape. I'm just saying is, you want a solution? Say, you don't need to go to that stuff. I'll give you what you want. Come see me. They really want you anyway. I'm telling you this. But you feel like you've been adulterated, you've been betrayed, he's cheated on you. Well, yes, to some degree that's not wrong when you think about when he says when you've lusted in your heart, but they're not lusting like that. They're not lusting for that kind of thing necessarily. There's probably some of them are, but for the most part, it's just an escape, whatever that means. I'm not trying to minimize it, just like I wouldn't minimize drug abuse. I wouldn't minimize alcoholism. So I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm trying to get you to repackage it so you're not so offended by it. It's no different than the other ones. If those wouldn't offend you, why does this one? Because you have self-image issues. You've got rejection issues. You have insecurities. So you've got all that stuff that you haven't dealt with. Okay? So it feels different to you. Now, guys, you need to just knock it off. All right? Find a different way to deal with your stuff. Because if you were in their shoes, you would hate it as much as they do. And you would feel like they do. And it's not showing your wives the kind of love that you need to have. You don't need to go home and tell your wives, hey, now you heard what Rabbi said, you need to be all sexy for me now. If you do, they'll know you were watching porn. You're welcome, ladies. Half the room just went, Did that help? Does that make any sense? Okay? It's the cultural mindset that determines how we view aberrant behavior, or what we think is aberrant behavior, negative, not acceptable by society behavior. Societies are different as to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. In Sodom and Gomorrah, anything almost was acceptable, right? That society would have looked at, what do you mean that's a problem? Everything goes. We're turning into somewhat that kind of society as we're having the gender confusions and some of the other things that are happening. So society is just kind of shifting into, whatever. But in the meantime, let's take something like the pornography thing. Guys, stop being ashamed about it enough to go get help and talk to somebody about it. It has a lot of really negative aspects to it that are hurting you that you don't even know. And so there's reasons to get out of it and avoid it and to be cured of that addiction. And by the way to get cured from pornography is the same way you get cured from anything. Well, let me compare it to alcoholism. It's the easiest way to go. What does an alcoholic try to do? Be sober today, right? And then the next day, what does the alcoholic try to do? Be sober today. So today, don't do any pornography. Well, I don't know about next month. No, today. Then guess what you do tomorrow? Tomorrow, don't do any. And you know what? After about 30 days, like anything else, you'll have broken or at least greatly diminished the habit. Now, like alcohol, ladies, you need to understand this. It is highly addictive, extremely addictive, like any other addiction. And the society is going to tempt it and tweak it. Every TV show, every commercial, every movie is going to put scantily clad women in front of your men. It's like bringing an alcoholic to a bar over and over again. It's only so much they can resist. So, again, it's a struggle. Ladies, you have to understand, don't be so ashamed or embarrassed or mad at your man. They are in a system that is designed to have them fall in this area. It is absolutely marketing to that carnality, okay? But it's not, this is the important piece you need to know, it's not about you, okay? Please, ladies, hear me. If you find your man doing these things, there's a concern, there needs to be help. Do not think it's about you. It's not about you. Okay? I promise you, I've yet to run into somebody where my wife, blah, 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 so I do porn. That's not the way it ever works. I love my wife, but I'm struggling with this thing. Why are you I don't know. It happened when I was a kid and I got addicted. It's just like putting a kid on crack or a kid on alcohol when they're young. They just get addicted. They get hooked up on it. Maybe the father had Playboys in the house back when it was magazines. Maybe, whatever. You get hooked. And this is before they bet you, I'm sure. Okay? So the important thing to understand is that it's a terribly addictive thing. It is destructive, but it's not about you. Just like the alcohol or the drugs wouldn't be about you. Okay? Does that help? Okay? I know that was an awkward conversation because nobody wants to talk about this subject. That's okay. I know she's like, I don't mind. Well, she does therapy for a living and wants to know what to say to people. How do I handle this? So, okay? And I've never really talked about it before from the microphone, but I think that was a good question because I think this is a huge problem. But so with the other things too. Alcohol is a huge problem. Drugs are a huge problem. For some groups of people, gambling is a huge problem. I mean, these are huge problems. They're all escapes. There's things in their reality that are too painful to deal with, so they found a place that they can go where they're not in pain for a few minutes. All right? And that makes them all the same. On that level, they're all the same. So I just want to encourage you, ladies, please don't immediately run to get a divorce just because you found out your husband was doing porn. Just work together, try to figure it out. Have empathy and compassion on his struggle. This is a tough addiction for men, and all of them, to most part, have been exposed to it in some manner. It's really hard for them to deal with, all right? So you can work together. I know one couple, the way they work together is that he got an analog phone. They're happily married. He had the problem. They don't have any internet, and they don't have any of that stuff with digital stuff. He has no access to anything. Okay? When he goes on the computer, she's always with him. Not because he's going to run to do it every time, but then she knows and he knows and it's safe. There are things you can do. Okay? But just understand that. So thanks for the question, Janet. You put me in a very awkward position. But I did get to quote a country song, so it's okay. All right? But ladies, again, I don't know how to say it over and over again. The husband that you have, he thinks you still got what it takes. Now, I know you don't think so. Unless you're still 18 or whatever, you don't think so, okay? And even a lot of 18-year-olds don't think so. That's okay. He thinks so. Believe me, he does. Of course, he'll start thinking less of it if you keep thinking of yourself and keep pushing him away and keep treating him because you don't feel attractive. Guys, reassure your wives. You reassure them. I think your sex is tractor. My tongue got in front of my eye teeth and I couldn't see what I was saying. Tell them that you think their tractor is sexy, so to speak. Let them know that they're still attracted. And don't. By the way, ladies, don't think that every one of your husbands that does that now is into porn. I want all the men to do this. Period. Okay. That way, you're all covered. All of you, remind your wives, you're the one that you still get my motor running. Okay. Okay, you get me going. That's all it needs to be. I want you. You're my wife. Okay. All right? And guys, go look in the mirror. You're nothing special at the moment either, so just, Okay? You're all thinking, have you seen my wife? Well, have you seen you? You got a mirror, don't you? Some of you are not Buddhist, but you have a resemblance. Okay? You wake up in the morning and rub that belly. See what happens when we get to overtime? Now you'll want to stay out to go to City Cafe at 2 in the morning and see what happens. We laugh hard after midnight. And this is all going on YouTube. So if you think that you have people talking about you, oh, is it going on? It's going to go on now. It's too late. It's just go. No filter, just go. All right, that wraps it up. Are we good? All done? Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, I got 2 guys up front. Hold on. Wait a minute, I got 2 guys up front. And then I got to let sure the dancing gets in there. But go ahead, we got 2 guys real quick.
I guess in front of a congregation is the best time for a confession. But pornography was my addiction all my life. Since I was 10 until 2003.
You see how early it started, though? So if he got married, the wife had nothing to do with it. He had it since he was 10.
And I'm telling you that it not only is a very addictive and diabolical addiction, it also opens up portals to very sinful activity. And it just overwhelms you. And I suggest that anybody that gets into it, stop right now.
Amen.
Stop right now.
All right, hold on.
Stop right now.
Okay. Now, have you been married?
Yes.
Was it ever about her?
No.
Okay. You understand what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that's clear out there. It was never about the woman. Okay? But it is insidious. It is extremely addictive, like toxically the high level of whatever addiction. And yes, stop it now. But understand, because of its addictive nature, you can't just say, well, I can't quit. No, quit today, just for today, and tomorrow you'll deal with tomorrow. Amen?
Yes.
That's the only way to do it. If you think about quitting forever, it's not going to work. Just quit today. Today I'm not going to do it. Okay, good. Tomorrow I'm not going to do it. We should give everybody like a 5-day coin. Okay, go ahead.
But I'm extremely ashamed about it. I can't do anything about it, but, reflect upon it. I know it's ruined a lot of lives because of it. And all I can do is, I already said all the amens that I'm going to do about it. Okay. I can't do anything about it now.
Okay, but what you can
I
do...
repented about it.
Okay, but now you said it's been since 2003. So you can release that now and say, this is not who I am anymore.
No,
okay?
But it hurts to just bring it back.
Okay, I understand. And it will hurt. But you know what? You just blessed a whole bunch of people because you shared.
Well, my ministry is helping guys that have the problems with that. Okay. I've already helped like 5 people with that addiction already.
Well, I want to talk to you at some point to find out what you did to do that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, because then I can also use that to help because, I do things, I give suggestions, but if you've got a path that works, I want to know about it so I can utilize that.
Absolutely.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, so make sure we get together at some point so I can find out, what you did. Because obviously that's already been 16 years. That's pretty amazing. That's good stuff, you know? All right, last one.
I'll try not to be long-winded.
That's okay.
Since July 18, 2018, I've been still reeling with the loss of my son. Okay,
Put it up by your mouth a little bit more.
my wife and I are still, we have our off days and our down days. But what has been grief has been, you explained to us, stretching us for worse things ahead. And my question is, for me and my wife and for others that are going through it, where do we look for the shalom through those experiences?
Okay, so he had a loss of a son, tragically about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And again, just like the other things that we've talked about in the past, all right, time does heal a lot of these things. And again, that trauma will eventually end up being a memory that is, you'll remember all of the stuff that you love, all of the memories that were good with your son. The tragedy will always be there as a dull ache. There will be moments things that will happen that will trigger you to think about him, and it will still be traumatic. But it takes a lot of time. It's not as traumatic if you are the parent and you're now dealing with an ongoing. So let's say you get cancer or something, and it takes a year, and then you pass, and so people kind of have time to kind of get used to the idea. But when somebody is tragically, unexpectedly taken out of your life, it is a whole different level of trauma. Okay? And especially for a parent, because you're not supposed to outlive your kids. Okay? Like in your brain, that's just not the way it goes. So for you to still be around and them not be around, that is just incredibly exponentially harder to deal with. But over time, it will get to where those moments are less, and when they do come, they're less painful. And what you'll still remember is all the good stuff. It's only been, let's just say it's only been a year and a half. This kind of a tragedy is going to take a while, okay? But I think you already know it's better now than it was 6 or 8 months ago, okay? And so we're heading in the right direction. Okay, thank you for sharing that. All right, we need to wrap this up. Did you have anything else online? No, we're good? Okay, so we need to wrap this up, okay? All right, you can sign up in the back for group therapy. We do that every... I think these are good. I think I'd like to see, it'd be so great if we could just keep doing this like for a week. Just keep going and doing these kind of things. I think we might do at some point like a couples retreat type of thing or something to do with marriage stuff. We can do other type of retreat where, we can have some of the things that we need to deal with. But let's go ahead and close this up, and I'm going to go ahead and close it in prayer. Father, we want to come before you, and we want to stop and pause to recognize that you are the reason that we're trying to really have victory. You've inspired us, you've shown us, and you've given us hope that because you've called us in the mess that we were in, at moments that we may not have ever had any hope, but the knowledge that you would only call us knowing we could have the victory gives us the hope, if nothing else, that we could have the victory. So, Father, we want to thank you that you've called us and that you've inspired us, that you brought us into this space with this leadership and these people and these friends and these family members and created a safe environment where we can deal with our stuff and we can love on each other and that we can grow into that place of being transformed and conformed to the image of Yeshua. So, Father, we just want to thank you. We want to praise your holy name and give you all glory and honor. In the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right, those of you that want to stay for the dance class, we're going to start that here in just a few minutes. And the marketplace is open if you need to do anything back there.